On this episode of the DTVC podcast, Mitch from the Video Vacuum is back, and we're looking at Champagne and Bullets, aka, quote, get even, close quote. So stay tuned for that. It was a really fun conversation. At a few points in the episode, I refer to the Shimmy Slide as the Shimmy Shake. So just keep that in mind. Mitch does correct me, and I try to keep with it, but I think my mistake even kind of bleeds into him, and he has trouble keeping it straight because I kind of screwed the whole thing up there. So, but yeah, so keep an ear out for that. You might hear it and be like, come on, Matt, it's the Shimmy Slide, not the Shimmy Shake. So anyway, but really fun conversation there. We also talk about that maybe next time he comes on, we might do some Neil Breen. So we might go further down the Vanity Project rabbit hole. So keep an eye out for that as well. Then the next 2 weeks, I've got episodes in the can with John from PM Entertainment Podcast, where we talk about erotic thrillers. We look at Mirror Images 2 and Private Obsession. So we've got that. And then also Scott Murphy from All 90s Action All the Time. I recorded with him recently where we talk about urban justice. So I think it's going to be John next week, Scott in 2 weeks, but it's just a matter of how the editing goes for that. So full disclosure, I'm going away this weekend, going up to visit my family, and so I'm going to have to sort of figure out how the editing will go for that while I'm up there. So that's mainly the issue. So it could be one or the other. And then, of course, middle of the month, we've got Tieback, where we're looking at A Line of Fire, the new one from David A.R. White, and then Pray of Wrath or Pray for Wrath, something like that. But it's got Tatiana Neva is in it, and Cynthia Rothrock. And Tatiana Neva is great. So whatever the name is, Pray of Wrath, Pray for Wrath. I think it's Pray of Wrath. But so that'll be looking at. That'll be in a few weeks' time. So keep an eye out for that as well. Then we did do a DTVC extra. We got the second part of my Indiana Jones movies look. That came up this past weekend. I think I got it up late Sunday. So you can check that out as well if you're curious to see what I thought of the two newest entries in the Indiana Jones saga, and then kind of where I saw that franchise going. With the DTVC extras, I don't put them on social media. So it's just, if you're subscribed to us on YouTube or on your favorite podcatcher, you'll see the episode. Otherwise, you might not catch it. So you can check us out, wherever you get your podcast, you can check out that episode if you'd like. And then in terms of future DTVC extra episodes, I've got now, I could do one on the Mortal Kombat films. I could also do one on The Mandalorian because I've seen all the seasons plus the new movie. So a couple ways we could go there on DTVC Extra. So, we'll see. Maybe we'll get something up in June at some point. And one of those topics, probably Mortal Kombat if we do one, and then Mandalorian would come next. And I think I could probably do it in one episode. But, we'll see. I thought I was going to be able to do Indiana Jones in one episode. Once I started going, I realized, I've got an hour and a half just on the first three movies. So I probably should cut this into 2 episodes, which is what I ended up doing. So, we'll see what happens there. Yes, in terms of the site, this past weekend we did Mirror Images 1. So essentially, when John and I were doing Mirror Images 2 and Private Obsession, because we were doing a Shannon Worry double feature, I figured, why don't I watch Mirror Images 1, which doesn't have Worry in it, and, use it for a review, get it as a review. So we got that up on the site. Now, to end the month, I wanted to do Mark Dacascos, and I wanted to do a movie called The Driver, a movie that he did with Wick, is it Keo Sanandra? I think I'm saying it right, but none of one of the movies that he did with him, and so I thought that would be a fun one to review. It's just a matter of if I can get that movie in and get screens taken of it before I go away this weekend, if I'm able to get the review up. If not, I might fall back on one that I've already watched. I think Hunt Club is one that I have in there that I was going to do. There was also another movie called MR9 Do or Die that I was looking at reviewing, because that was one that Ty and I did on the podcast. We also did Hunt Club on a podcast episode. But the thing with MR9 Do or Die, it's got Michael Jai White in it, and that would have been his 30 Club movie. And it's he's barely in the movie. I mean, he's in the movie some, but he's not really the star of it. So I feel like if I'm going to get him in the 30 Club, we should do a proper movie for him. So MR9 Do or Die, it's kind of on the upcoming reviews watched list on Letterboxd. It's a little bit higher than it should be. I need to get another Michael Jai White movie watched and get that for his 30 Club entry. So we should get that done soon as well. So keep it out this weekend. Could be any number of reviews that we could have up there. But as always, watch this space. Check the social media, and we'll get one of them up this weekend. And then in terms of my guest appearances on other podcasts, my episode on the Stallone movies with Ty and Brett from Comeuppance, that is up now. So there, if you should be subscribed to the Comeuppance Reviews podcast. I'm on there. I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet. I'm going to listen to it tonight. But one of the things was I had tech issues at the end of that episode. I think I had a bad Ethernet cable, and I think The Ethernet cable caused me to disconnect from them, and then I wasn't able to reconnect due to an issue with Riverside with the cookies there. So they kind of finished the episode for me. But it was really fun talking Stallone with them. And of course, we hit some of the usual suspects as well. Like we get a Righteous Kill conversation, and we kind of cast Stallone with De Niro for a Righteous Kill sequel that we had thought would be a great idea to do with as a Randall scandal. So definitely check that episode out. And then the Lambcast, I was actually a guest host on the Lambcast episode that should be coming out this week, looking at The Mandalorian and Grogu. So I went to the theater, caught that movie, and then guests were no strangers to this podcast, right? We had Todd Liebenow from Forgotten Filmcast and Jeanette Ward from Mundane Adventures of a Fangirl, both that we've had as guests on this podcast. So it was a really great conversation there. I tried to land a joke on about Gina Carano, because you know how she, obviously she was written out of the show, and I was saying how the third season should have started with her with like a funeral for her character, and then the Mandalorian's by himself in the kitchen, and he just goes, "Damn." Damn. And I don't know how well that joke landed. It's probably a little bit too classic TV-ish for that. But yeah, and I also said that I wanted to Lucas B. Arthur pouring liquid into the top of Harvey Korman's head into every movie, essentially every time. So you have to do an exit question for the Lambcast, and so my exit question is like, what would you Lucas about the series? And that was my thing that I would Lucas. So yeah, it was a really fun conversation. Todd and Jeanette, always fun chatting with them. So definitely check that out as well. Yeah, I think that is everything. I think we've covered everything going into this episode, except for one thing, right? There was one thing we haven't covered yet, and that would be my newest novel, Mark in Sales, which you can get on paperback and Kindle Unlimited as well on Amazon. If you're not interested in reading Mark in Sales, if that's a subject that doesn't work for you, you can go to my author page. The link to that is also in the podcast description, and you can check out any of my books. So I have written 6 novels, plus I wrote the short action novel, Bainbridge. And I'm looking to do some more Bainbridge. I did do a rough draft in the back last fall. I just got to get a chance to look at it again and see. So maybe we'll get some more Bainbridge up to people to check that out. But if you're looking for an action book, Bainbridge would be the one for that. Again, the link to my author page is in the podcast description. That'll take you to the website where it has links to all the Amazon, all the Amazon links where you can pick out any of my books. And I always appreciate anybody who wants to buy any of my books. I always appreciate that. Yeah, so why don't we have John Cross from Miscellaneous Plumbing Fixtures playing our theme song. Also, John Cross, Miscellaneous Plumbing Fixtures, he is, the link to his Bandcamp is also in this podcast description. So if books aren't your thing, but music is your thing, go pick up something from Miscellaneous Plumbing Fixtures. He's got some great stuff on his Bandcamp page. All the money goes to him when it's Bandcamp Friday, but, even when it's not a Bandcamp Friday, he always appreciates the sales. So, and again, his music's really great. So check that out as well. But yeah, we'll have John playing our theme song. When we come back, Mitch will be on, and we'll start looking at Champagne and Bullets. Hey everyone, welcome back to the DTVC podcast. As always, this is Matt here, and I am joined once again by Mitch from the Video Vacuum. Welcome back, Mitch.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
Yes, and we are here to talk about, I don't know if we call it a classic. What would you call Champagne and Bullets, aka in quotation marks, Get Even? What would you call it?
A WTF masterpiece, a grade Z classic, some people use the term disaster piece, where it's just like every turn of this movie probably should not work, and it doesn't work, but that's kind of the beauty of it. And I think the closest I would say is like if The Room was a DTV action movie from the 90s, I think I think if you can accept that, and you're gonna know what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah, because the guys from Comeuppance, Ty and Brett, they have an expression for these kind of movies. They call it a that movie. Like Samurai Cop is a that movie. This obviously Miami Connection. It's like a that movie. One of the things they always say is you can't create a that movie on purpose. That's kind of what makes them so great. Is that these movies are made in earnest, and I think it's like one of the hallmarks. And this one, I mean, the bonkers stuff that goes on in this, but the guy that made the movie, John Lahart, is John DeHart. John DeHart. I was going to say Lahart, but John DeHart. Yeah, he fancies himself quite the Renaissance man, and he wanted to showcase that for the world.
Yeah, I mean, when I was rewatching this is probably the third or fourth time I've watched it. I kind of, started seeing parallels between John DeHart and Orson Welles. Because they both wrote, directed, and DeHart's case, he co-directed and starred and produced their first feature film. And I would say John DeHart could not make Citizen Kane, but then again, Orson Welles could not make Champagne and Bullets. So I think they're about even when it comes to filmmaking.
Yes, no, I totally agree. Now I
And
read
Orson Welles did not shimmy slide, so I mean, you got to give the tip of the hat to DeHart there.
no, I totally agree there. Now the other thing I read from your the shimmy slide, we are going to get to the shimmy slide. Yeah, and the funny thing is, the shimmy slide is just one of many songs that DeHart sings. And yeah, it's a whole other thing. I wanted to mention because you when you reviewed this for your site, you reviewed it as your post in honor of Wings Hauser. And when I saw that this movie was available at the time that Wings passed, because I was looking for a movie to review for him as well, I was like, well, I don't want to do that one because I don't think he's going to be in it much. That was my sense of it. But it turns out there's a lot of Wings in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like an interesting kind of almost like a bait and switch, because he's kind of prominently featured kind of in the earlier parts of the movie, and even though his screen time is kind of limited throughout the film, he delivers in spades. I mean, and I think too he may have taken this role. Maybe there wasn't a lot of money, but I think there was room to improvise with the script, because there are just like these long takes where he just rambles, and you can see like might have been like a bare wisp of a sentence he was supposed to convey, but he turns into like this like alcohol fueled monologue, and it's wondrous to behold.
It is. It's absolutely amazing, and it is kind of perfect. Now, had you seen this before you reviewed it for the Wings post, or did you go in blind? For that?
Well, that's interesting. Like, I had heard bits and pieces about this movie over the years, but like it was one of those things when Vinegar Syndrome put it out, I didn't pull the trigger on it and I didn't buy it. But I think it was just kind of like one of those kind of like serendipitous moments. My friend actually brought it over for one of our movie nights, and that happened just to be right around the time that Wings passed. So it was like, oh, okay, well, this will work out perfectly. And I mean, we use this term a lot, like the beer and pizza movie. This is definitely like an all-time beer and pizza movie, because you get as many people together as you can, and you can almost riff on it MST style. You could just enjoy it for what it is. I mean, and it's and there's like, and we'll get into it. There's like so many different layers of enjoyment to be had. It's like a 7-layer dip of just WTF.
Right, it's for sure. Well, maybe I'll give a quick synopsis then, and then we'll kind of just go right in for it, because yeah, this is a trip. So again, John DeHart, he plays Rick Bodie as I can't remember, but anyway, he's a fellow police officer, LAPD officer with Wings Hauser, who plays Huck Finney, and then William Smith, who plays Normad, not Norman, but Normad. And Normad, William Smith, if you're curious, if you're wondering, he's playing an LAPD officer, and you're like, he can't be a good guy, right? He's not. So he gets angry because he has a bus that goes bad, and he sets up the other two guys and says, oh, they're doing drugs on the job, and they lose their jobs as police officers. Now, while DeHart's character does all right for himself, and he drives a limo and abandons kids if they're too bratty while they're going to their prom and stuff. He's making out all right. Wings is having trouble holding down a job, and then when DeHart reconnects with an old flame and they move in together, that causes Wings to spiral out of control. But DeHart, he thinks he's doing all right until it turns out that William Smith and some other people have a satanic cult that they're running, and DeHart's old flame had fallen in with that cult. So anyway, there's sort of this collision course to wackiness as the old satanic cult finds her, tries to take her, and then he has to get revenge on them and take them out, and also maybe clear his name and all of that stuff. So yeah, it's and in between there are multiple love scenes set to DeHart's music. There's all kind. His music comes up a lot in this. I don't even know. I guess just so overall, like you were talking about this, that this is right there as a classic. I think, or a classic, disaster piece. That movie, that kind of thing. It fits right with the Samurai Cop and those kind of movies.
Yeah, and there's also kind of like the alter thing going on that you get with like Tommy Wiseau and Neil Breen, where it's definitely one man's ego bared for everyone to see. And it's like, and this was basically a one and done for DeHart. I mean, I think he had a cameo in another movie, but he left at the top of the heap. I mean, I think he accomplished everything he ever wanted to do in film. He got in action scenes. He got to do a musical number. He got to produce several songs for the soundtrack. He had multiple sex scenes with a Playboy playmate. I mean, where do you go from there? So it's kind of like one of those things. Like, I think if he, had a follow up, it might have disappointed and might have tarnished his legacy. So it's better just to always wonder, what his next film could have been.
Yes, no, I totally agree. Now the movie you're talking about that he cameoed in, it's called The Champagne Gang, and it was written and directed by Daniel Zerilli, the late Daniel Zerilli, who was kind of a bit of, I don't know if a schlock auteur is the right way to say it with him. He's a very low budget auteur for sure. And I wonder if he knew he was making a movie called Champagne Gang, if he had seen Champagne and Bullets and appreciated, what happened in that movie and was like, yeah, let me get this guy in the movie. And DeHart must have just been like, hey, wow, somebody wants to put me in another movie. Sure, I'll do it.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I saw Champagne Gang like way back in the day, and I had basically no, I at that point I didn't know anything about Champagne and Bullets, and like you said, it was just kind of like a low budget kind of schlocky kind of deal, and I don't even have any memory of DeHart being in it, but I wouldn't have been able to pick him out of the lineup, back in like 2011 whenever I saw it. So it that might be something to go back, back into the files and check out again.
Yeah, I mean, we need to go back and do more of Zerilli's stuff. So I think that could be a good one. But I mean, to your point, I think if anybody would appreciate Champagne and Bullets the way we're talking about it here, the reverence with which we're talking about it, Zerilli sounds like somebody who would have. I think he would have watched that and been like, "This is fantastic." And to your point too, I think this whole, we use this expression nowadays, living your best life. And John DeHart is in this movie living his best life.
Yeah. I mean, what more can you want or ask for? I mean, like, it's just, another interesting aspect is if you know that he's a lawyer by day, basically, and his day job, there's a lot of like digs at the legal system throughout the movie, and it's like just the fact that, and I think this is the only time I've seen this in a movie, is where the crooked cop becomes a judge within a year's time. Right, so all of a sudden, like, not only is he the bad cop that that busted DeHart and Wings. Like he's like this corrupt judge. And there's a couple courtroom scenes too where, like, you know, you can see where, you know, justice does not prevail. So I have to wonder if there was like a nugget of truth in this. Like, maybe he had a one of his cases in his day job, and he was like, you know, this isn't fair. And then he, like, that was the kernel that kind of went on to create this movie.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, to your point too about him, you know, being the former lawyer, he there's certain scenes, like, you know, thinking about, you know, rock climbing, or as we have here, on our site, or, you know, on the DTVC podcast, we've got croquet, right, from Santa's Summer House. This movie has bail, signing for bail. Where and again, to your, I never really thought of it before, but DeHart probably had to experience a lot of situations with his clients having to bail them out of jail, and he would go through these processes, and he just felt like we needed to see the entire process of bailing somebody out of jail, where it's like signing over your deed, signing this, signing that, the whole thing. Which I guess maybe it's good to know that about the justice, you know, that, like, if you're in jail, and I mean, what did Wings, I think, spent 5 hours in jail before he got bailed out, and he, you know, which he gets arrested for being in a bar fight defending DeHart. It does seem like a lot of Wingshauser's character's problems in this movie come up because of DeHart's friendship with him. But it was like, I'm watching this bail bond scene, and it's like, on the one hand, I'm like, this is croquet, this is, you know, rock climbing, or what was it, Sandstorm? Was that the Hercules one?
Yeah,
Sandstorm.
Sandstorm. Yeah.
It falls into that category, but at the same time, you're seeing this character who's playing the bail bondsman, who is just like small talking with them while he's getting, you know, like, the mother-in-law's deed, and he's doing all this other stuff, and it's just such a fascinating thing that again, I keep saying, to your point, but Orson Welles could not do a bail bond scene the way DeHart did this scene.
Yeah, and you know, they always say first thing is write what you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, there we go. You know, and I think he approached it as, you know, in the same way any maverick auteur would, which is not the Hollywood way, which, you know, you would just see him walking out of the courtroom and complaining about the bail process, or no, he wants to show it.
Right. And the other thing too, you know, with him being a former, you know, if he was a former defense attorney, when he makes a crack about the person who was working at the front desk for the police, you know, that was handling the bail. What did he say to that guy? Like, oh, he called him something like a dickhead or something, like, I can't remember, dipshit or something like that. He was like, you know, have a nice night, dipshit, or something. I can't remember. And he gave him the fingers. He walked out. So it is interesting that he plays a police officer in this, but he also seems to kind of have a bone to pick with the police as well.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, I think it's also kind of interesting in the fact that there's a lot of like little moments like that, like little minutia of just like I said, you don't see in movies like that. Like when you know, like it focuses a lot on Wings kind of getting drunk and depressed and not being able to get off the couch, and he's got all these, you know, problems with his ex, and you know, and then of course there's just like the scenes where they go out to the bar, but there's also those scenes before they go out to the bar where they're getting ready to go out, and it seems like those scenes like kind of like weird little touches like that almost make it like an indie movie, like, you know, like a 90s independent movie where they didn't have enough money to film at the club, so we're going to have this whole scene of them getting ready for the club because we don't have the money to actually go to the club.
Right. And of course, we're talking about a bar that is, we think, maybe John DeHart's finished basement.
Yes, that was my next point. But he does have Pac-Man. He's got a good arcade collection.
The Miss Pac-Man, which in you know, at that time, having arcade machines at that time was a huge deal. Nowadays, you can get them for a little bit cheaper because a lot of them are older and they're, you know, or they have replicas. But back then, that was a sign that someone had some money if they had arcade machines in their basement.
Yeah, and like you said, like it basically. It looks like a finished basement / karaoke, like kind of it's just big enough for 4 people to country line dance. But not, at the same time, it's not as spacious enough to like really have like a dance floor, so they have them kind of cordon off to the side, but it does have at least enough spots for like 7 or 8 people to sit at the bar.
Right.
So
Yes.
it's like this weird kind of amalgam of finished basement, karaoke bar, and just kind of like spare bedroom.
Right, exactly. Now I looked it up. The line is, "Here's a quarter. Go buy a personality." That's what he tells the police officer when they leave with wings after they bail him out. So, yeah, that was the line there. But yeah, I mean, before we get into, because go back to the finish bar for the shimmy shake. Actually, I guess that's during the. Is it during the shimmy shake? I guess it comes right after. So maybe we'll do the shimmy shake now, because after they go to court for the day and discover that they're losing, or no, I'm sorry, I'm losing. They discover they lose their jobs, and that they're working for this limousine driving company that DeHart's ex-mother-in-law runs. And so after a day of riding the limousine, and so DeHart's taking these kids to the prom, which these kids would have been about our age, I guess, right? When no, they would have been a little bit older than us, because
A little older.
yeah. But they're acting up. They're acting so crazy that they say they need to go to the bathroom. He lets them go out to make a pit stop, and then he drives off without them. He's also wearing leather pants and a leather shirt to be a limo driver, which is fantastic. I mean, he's wearing leather pants this whole movie. But then he and Wings decide to go to the bar after, and he meets, his ex, his new boss's daughter. But his ex is there. They're kind of rekindling things. They're talking about things. And at some point, there's this discussion of like, hey, you should go up and sing with the band. You should go do a number. And it kind of comes out of nowhere. And he's kind of like, ah, shucks, yeah, all right, I'll go do it. And what we get is the shimmy shake, which whenever you mention Champagne and Bullets to anybody who's seen this movie, that's the first thing they say.
Yeah, Shimmy Slide.
Shimmy Slide, sorry, not the shimmy. Yeah,
No,
shimmy
it's
slide.
okay. Yeah,
Shimmy Slide. Yeah.
Shimmy Shake is like when you're in the bathroom
That's
afterward.
right. That's right. That's right. That's right.
No, but yeah, I kind of came into this kind of backwards. I saw the Shimmy Slide before, and I think there's a Roku channel called B Zone.
Mm-hmm.
They play a lot of great, B movie classics and not so classics. But I don't know if it was April Fool's Day or if they were just using but it was like a 15 or 20-minute loop of Shimmy Slide. And every time he goes, let's do it again, it would start up like right from the beginning. And I was like, and it was almost like this Zen thing. Like after you've seen it like 15 times in a row, it was like, wow. Like I was like, now I have to track down that movie. And once I found out it, like I said, it was like kind of like this serendipitous thing. I think it was not too long after that my buddy brought the movie over. So so I had closure. At least I could see the rest of the movie, and it lived up to the rest of the movie. But yeah, the Shimmy Slide is, like you said, it's kind of comes out of nowhere. I think we would be disappointed if there was like even a slightest hint, like a little bit of backstory that, hey, remember when you used to be a karaoke pro or something? The fact that it comes out of nowhere is part of its charm.
Yeah. Now, his voice, for people who haven't seen this before and don't know what we're talking about, I mean, I don't know about you. I guess the best comp that I was coming up for his voice is it's like a mix between Ian Curtis of Joy Division and Glenn Campbell. That was the best combination I could pull, because there's this like deep register that's almost like love will tear us apart, but then it's got like a twang as well. And I mean, and I guess the other one is maybe Homer's friend, Barney on The Simpsons. Like there's a little bit of that in there too. And yeah, but he just kind of stands there with this look on his face, like he's about to take his mugshot photo. He's like a celebrity getting his mugshot photo, and his arms are at his side, and he's just singing. And that's, it's like that combination of like he's never lip synced before, so he's got to do that. He's recorded this song, yeah, all of it together, and then of course, like you said, the line dancing. There's two young women that are watching and enjoying it, and then of course when the stripper comes on after, one of them can't handle that there's a stripper there, and she's like calling the cops or something. um, but they're enjoying it. It's a beautiful thing.
And the fact that he doesn't know what to do with his hands, like sometimes he's swinging them, sometimes they're just rigid, sometimes and like it's almost like the fact where like I don't know if stage fright got in it, but it's like he is definitely like a deer in headlights. Um and like it's just like all you take all of that and the fact that the song itself is like a legitimate bop, like it's an earworm, it will get in your head. And and without the visual the visual of him kind of just being up there kind of like a uh just almost like a cardboard cutout of a country singer from the 90s, like it's just it's just like one of those perfect storm kind of swells of why we love these kinds of movies.
Yes. Now, while he's performing, this young woman that he's reconnecting with, like I said, she's a former Playboy playmate. She actually passed away. I couldn't believe that uh, she had passed away in what in 2010, I think, or something like that. She had an asthma attack while she was in Hawaii, of all things. But the actor's name is Pamela Jean Bryant. So she's sitting there watching him, and then this gang shows up, which like they look like something out of Class of Nukem High or something. This gang, and they recognize her as having been a part of their gang, and they're told, "Oh, well, you got to take her. We got to take her in or whatever." So when they go to kidnap her, we get this like half baked like this ballroom fight where DeHart is taking out a couple guys, but then Wings comes in, which I mean, Wings is like twice the size of any of the people anyway that he's fighting here, and he starts like taking them out, and then the cops show up and he gets arrested. Which I just love the fact that DeHart is just standing there like he's the one who starts the fight with these guys to kind of protect his ex, I guess, he's going to be in a relationship with later. But then when Wings steps in, suddenly he's the one who gets arrested with the other guys, and DeHart's like, well, I guess I'll go bail him out, as opposed to like, hey, like, wait a second, this is probably not a good thing that he's getting arrested when he was helping me. Like, what? Like, how did I let this happen?
I mean, but then again, they knew that the William Smith is the crooked judge now, so there's probably no other recourse but then to do it by the book. So, but I mean, and that's one of the beautiful things. Also, like that, like because the movie is front loaded with Wings. Earlier in the movie, there's the scene where we find out that William Smith is testifying against planning against John DeHart and Wings, and he's making up all these false claims, and Wings just can't take it anymore, and he just like stands up and he's like gonna like fight Smith in the middle of the courtroom, and he's got to be dragged off, and it's just like this. Like I said, it's almost like a John Grisham movie there for a little bit. And it's just like those little moments like that are just or so like it's I would put it up there with like the Injustice for all scene, I'm out of order, you're out of order, where he just jumps up and just loses it in the courtroom.
Right. You can't handle the truth, right? It's up there with the classic courtroom.
It's up there, yeah.
Exactly. Now after this, Pamela Jean Bryant, I should get the character's name. Cindy. Cindy tells Mr. DeHart. She tells I should get his name correct too. I keep calling him John DeHart. Rick. She tells Rick about her experience. Now, at this point, she doesn't know that the man that she's seeing lead this satanic cult that she's a part of is William Smith. She knows who he is, but she doesn't know he's the same guy that DeHart is talking about. But we get this satanic ritual scene where I don't know that I ever thought I was going to say this about a movie, but I guess this is why we talk about these kinds of movies. William Smith sacrifices a baby. And I think to your point about talking about, this being a pizza and beer movie and you have everybody over and goof around with it, normally sacrificing a baby in a movie, you'd be like, oh no, we got to stay away from that one. We can't watch that one. But it is so ridiculous that you're just like, William Smith sacrificed a baby right there. I guess that's what just happened.
Well, yeah, and there are moments in this that, kind of cross a line. Like there's like a rape scene
Yes,
later
yeah, that one,
that kind
yeah.
of goes on a little bit too long, but it's just one of those, like, when you get the Kellogg variety pack, there's always that one cereal in there that doesn't get ate. That's kind of the Kellogg variety pack version of that. That scene is that, whether it's the frosted mini wheats or whatever, take your pick. But throughout the whole movie, you're getting the Rice Krispies and the Fruit Loops and the Honey Nut Cheerios. So you're all good until that scene. But yeah, it's okay. But 11 of the other cereals were good. So
Right, exactly. And I mean, because I think the difference between, yeah, like you said, the rape scene goes on way too long, whereas the baby, it's just like they show the baby. It's this cute little baby. It's obviously not a newborn, but it's still a baby. Where they find a baby for a sacrifice, John DeHart doesn't care, doesn't want to tell us, doesn't matter. And then it's very like kind of like 60s 50s or 60s sort of like low budget movie style. He just kind of stabs down at the air and we sort of take that to be that he's sacrificing the baby. But in that sense, I kind of appreciate it. I almost would have liked it if they had done that same thing with the sexual assault, if they had made it like those old like 50s and 60s where it's like maybe just somebody like like kind of the music playing with some horns and shaky camera and stuff like that, because he does it with the baby. For some reason he figured with the baby scene I can't go too far with that, which again you're sacrificing a baby to begin with. Like I don't know what made you think that was a good idea, but and I mean the other thing is of course when Cindy is watching it, she protests. She's like, I can't, this is horrible. What are you doing? And they tie her to a post. The bad guy gang ties her to a post, and then because she's like screaming or yelling, telling them to stop, they have to gag her. But like when in the process of doing it, she gets like all of her hair stuck in her mouth as well. And again, that must have been one of those deals where it was like, hey, we got to. The scene's working. Let's just go with it. And so they just go with it. It's just like this big mess of a scene here because DeHart wanted William Smith's character to be involved in a satanic cult. That's what we get.
yeah, I mean, and it's just you've got to appreciate the fact that Smith basically has his fingers in everything. He's not only is he a dirty cop, he's a crooked judge and he's a Satanist. So you don't see that very often in movies, or usually they're kind of like spread out over three separate characters who are running but no, and to his credit, William Smith can play all of those characters in his sleep. So, he was definitely up for the challenge.
Well, that's what I was going to say was that, while Wings is like taking like little threads of his character and blowing them up Wings style, just giving us, Wings on 10 for these moments. It's more like William Smith is just selling us the fact that this guy is into all this stuff. Like it is unbelievable as all of this stuff is. It's not unbelievable because of William Smith's performance. He's just like, yeah, I run a satanic cult. I deal drugs. I'm a judge. Hey, what's not to love?
Yeah, he even like kind of chastises the one lackey in one scene, like what are we, like this is a business area, like like you've got to get your note, yeah, and it's almost like kind of like the dark side of the American dream kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and that's the interesting thing about this movie because on the one hand, you have this satanic cult, and you think like, okay, the heart might go into this whole big, Christianity thing, like hey, if you don't have Jesus, if you go to the devil, right? If you worship the devil, this is what happens. But no, he actually shows the other side of the coin because Cindy has to go to her dad and stepmom's place to get her stuff. And the dad is like one of those fundamentalist Christian holy roller types who, like, he completely, has castigated her. What does he say? I think his line is also listed here in IMDb that he says something along the lines of like, you're hanging around with those devil worshippers in Hollywood. Yeah, he goes, oh, when he meets John DeHart's character, when he meets Rick for the first time, he sees him, standing there with Cindy. He goes, "Who are you? Another drug contaminated devil worshiper from Hollywood?" And it's just like, but it's a level of nuance that these movies aren't usually supposed to have. He's not supposed to be like, oh, satanic cults and outside of the the baby sacrificing, satanic cult and Christian fundamentalists are almost two sides of the same coin. You don't usually get that nuance in a movie like this.
Yeah, and I mean, you in an action movie, revenge movie, you don't get that scene where the hero accompanies his girlfriend to go get her stuff
Right.
from her parents' house, and have this conversation either. So it's like I said, there are moments there that just kind of flirt with like being this quirky independent drama, and there are times where it just plows head on into this grade Z action movie that we love it for. But it does take these little side jaunts where you're just like, and you get caught up with it, and like and then it's only like kind of later you're like, what was that about? Like, we don't normally see that in the movie.
No. Well, because the other thing is he shows up with her. They take his motorcycle. He's wearing leather pants to go meet her parents. And the thing is, he's wearing leather pants throughout this movie. And occasionally he'll wear a leather shirt to go with it. At the same time, he's got like this, like, I don't want to say doddering old man mustache, but it definitely doesn't make him look any younger. And his hair as well. That the juxtaposition of all that, where he's like, no, I've got to be wearing leather pants in every scene. And then he's like, he's talking to her parents like he's supposed to be like a young kid who's like the same age as a Pamela G. Bryant, but he's not. He's obviously a lot older. Yeah, and then of course the other thing with that scene is we've got dogs in the yard, and so dogs always make a scene better.
And going back to the leather aspect of it, I don't know if you caught this, but in the opening scene where Smith and DeHart and Wings are do the siege on the drug dealing house, their uniform is a leather jacket with LAPD stenciled in white on the back.
Yes, it's so perfect.
And it's like they either got a deal from a leather store, or they got a sponsorship or something, because I don't think that's standard issue LAPD uniform there.
No, and the hats are like they're just kind of black baseball caps.
Yes.
Yeah, and the raid one of the members of the gang. So the raid is on like I don't know if it's like a meth lab or something, but it's in a trailer out in the middle of nowhere. But one of the guys caught up in the raid is Al Sapienza of all people, and I don't think I don't know if he would have been enough of a name that DeHart was getting him for the name, and if it was more that Sapienza was just trying to get another role.
Yeah, there's a couple different people that pop in and out of the movie, like Lisa London from a lot of Jim Wynorski movies, and I have a feeling that either they may have been friends of Wings, or I think Pamela Bryant was in Hots with Lisa London, so there may have been like, hey, we need an extra for this, or hey, you want to come visit me? We'll hang out. We'll put you in the movie. Probably can't pay you, but yeah, I think there may have been some crossover. Like DeHart might have just been like, hey, if you got any friends and they want to be in a movie for a day, then bring them.
You make a great point, especially about Lisa London, because she's not credited in the movie, and so she just has that one scene as the waiter or as a server or waitress where she just says some lines. I think it's to the gang, right? I think the gang or something tries to give her a hard time, and she just sort of gets her beers and gets out of there. But then it's another server later that's the one that's assaulted by the gang. So yeah, it's her one scene. I always remember my favorite scene with her was I can't remember which one. Was it Return to Savage Beach? It was one of the Sedaris movies where she just before I think she ends up getting killed. It was maybe either that one or the next one she gets killed. But she's in the scene with with two of the stars with like Donna Spear, and she just essentially says who her character is. It's like, yeah, it must be really tough being a DEA agent and running a restaurant like this, right? And she's just like, yeah, really. And then like 2 minutes later, couple baddies come in and hose the place down with a machine gun, and she gets hit by something like that. But yeah, I always love her. She does a lot of cinema epoch films now, which is kind of cool that she gets a lot of work with them.
Yeah, she was always kind of like I think she's busier now than she ever was, and
Hmm.
it's you always like to see that, like especially it kind of reminds me of like actresses like Kit Natividad and yeah, where they kind of like got like that second wind later because people like grew up watching her movies and said, hey, let's put her in the movie just because they were fans. So it's I think that's kind of in that similar vein.
Yeah, she was in one of those cinema epoch films called, I think it was called Love Crime. But it was essentially it was based off the Jodi Arias thing, but it was like very much cinema epic, where it was just so bonkers and like just kind of like cinema verite almost kind of thing, where they were just putting things together. And she played the detective who was interrogating the Jodi Arias character, who was played by Nicole D'Angelo. And like she just like comes into the room and she's got like these big boots on and she just like sits back in her chair and puts her feet up. And it's kind of like this whole thing of like, yeah, Jodi Arias character, you're not going to use your feminine wiles on me. I'm too smart. I'm a woman. I'm not gonna fall for that kind of thing. And it was just so cool that like she brought that kind of energy. It's it is nice to see that she gets those opportunities now to kind of bring it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was, gosh, I'm trying to think. I think it was one of the the Giantess Attack movies. I think she was one of the doctors in that, and when she just has to say these, just very scientific gobbledygook kind of just spitting it out, but she always seems like she's got a handle and and you just buy it because she just has that knack to just like spit all that kind of like garbled dialogue out and just to get everybody to the next scene, and she's always has had has had that knack, I think.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think, she's just yeah, it's cool when you see her in something like this, but like, and there's a producer who will send screeners to me called Joe Williamson. And there are a couple times where I think I mentioned Sedaris movies and he called me out for forgetting Lisa London that was in one. He's like, "Oh, Lisa London has a great scene." Or I don't know if it was Sedaris, but it was something that had Lisa London in it, and I didn't mention her. So I always make sure I mention her now just because I know he might mention it for me, but I totally appreciate it too because I think she liked the review that I did of Love Crime because again I thought she was great in that one. So yeah, if you haven't seen that one, that's a fascinating one. I think it's on Tubi and all those other ones.
Yeah, it's definitely in my queue. I added it not too long ago, so
Yeah, it is. It's again, it's like those Gregory Hatanaka, but he I think he produces it, so it's directed by Nicole D'Angelo, but it's got Shane Ryan Reed in it, and it's like one of those
the
ones that like
usual cast of characters.
exactly it goes like 70 minutes long, roughly, and but it's like it just it's their take on the Jodi Arias thing, and it's like as perfect as their take can be on something like that. It's just such a but she Lisa London brings such a great energy to it, which I liked. So and like you said, it was great seeing her here too. It was fantastic.
Yeah, and I think the whole kind of you know that kind of seeing somebody like her or Wings in this movie, it kind of is almost like a snapshot of like that early '90s kind of Venn diagram of like people kind of intersecting at various parts of their career with like William Smith and Wings, and the fact that they would all kind of sign up for this kind of, I mean, essentially it's one man's vanity project. I mean, that's I think what this is. It was meant for a vehicle for John DeHart singing, you know, acting, all the things that he could do. I'm going to put it in this movie, and I have just enough money to get just enough name value where it, once we get to the video stores, it'll kind of blend in nicely with everything that's going on at the moment.
Yeah, well, and what's crazy about it with the Wing standpoint is that he had been doing PM flicks before this. So this is before, or this is after his PM run. And so I wonder if he just saw an opportunity for some extra cash. I mean, to be fair, if you looking at it on his bio, the movies he was getting before it. Though I completely forgot he was doing Roseanne at this time as well. He was playing. I mean, one of the things I've learned about these roles on TV shows is if you're not a regular cast member, if you're not somebody whose name is one of the top names on it, if you're just like Wings Hauser doing an episode here or there as Danielle Harris's father, you don't get paid that much for it. So it's possible that like John DeHart came to him with a good amount of money and he said, yeah, sure. I'll I could use the cash. I'll play the part, and I'll take it. And he definitely does the was it is it Michael Caine or Christopher Lee, somebody who said that like the key to doing a bad movie is not to be bad in it, and he definitely follows that ethos here.
Yeah, and like there's I think almost like a Nicolas Cage kind of level to some of his acting choices. There are scenes where he's like really grounded, and then there are scenes where he is just cranked up to 11. And there's like this whole like weird bit where he has like this Native American mannequin
Right.
that he just kind of carries around, and he just like before the big scene he just brings it out and plops it down on the couch while John DeHart's getting ready to get revenge. It's just like I don't. There, very few actors could have brought that same vibe that Wings brings to this movie.
Well, and you wonder if he found that somewhere and said, "I'm going to use this as part of my character," and DeHart's like, "Well, I can't tell him no about that," So it's like, So I remember I was listening to the episode's not there anymore, but on the I Must Break This podcast, the Dolph Lundgren podcast, Sean was interviewing the guy who I think he directed War Pigs, the Dolph movie with, is that what it's called? War Pigs with Dolph and yeah, and it's got Mickey Rourke in it, and he plays a general, I think, with a baseball cap or a colonel, not with a base, with a cowboy hat, and so Sean asked him, was like, well, was he supposed to be wearing a cowboy hat? And he said no. It was like, but who's going to tell Mickey Rourke he can't wear a cowboy hat in this role? So that was it, And I wonder if it's the same thing for DeHart here. It's like, I got Wings Hauser. He wants to do this. I'll let him do it, and just call it good. I mean, I don't. It's definitely, I don't know, it's definitely out there. It's like he's talking to the mannequin at times. It's yeah. It works in the context of the movie, I guess you could say.
Yeah, and then he kind of disappears a little bit once the Pamela O'Brien gets kind of more of a focus in with her character, but he comes back. There's this funeral scene where it's clearly, I don't even know if it's somebody's backyard, but it's kind of wedged in. They're almost standing like in the trees. It's a very bizarre thing, but Wings does like this little, I don't know if he's like praying or he's like mumbling to himself, and he's jittering, he's hopping around, and like you can't even focus on the ceremony part of it because Wings is twitching and jumping, and it's just another just kind of quintessential Wings moment in this one.
Right. No, he can't sit still. Yeah. No. Now, the catalyst that makes his character go over the deep end is that, and now this is another area where John DeHart's character, where Rick is not a good friend to his buddy Huck. He gets back with his girlfriend Cindy. They decide they're going to move in together, and the thing is that Rick has been living with Wings at Wings's house, and he'd been splitting the rent with him, which Wings needed that rent money because he doesn't have any other income right now. So he needed that help. And John DeHart's like, yeah, hey, guess what? I'm moving back in with Cindy. So that's it. And Wings is like, but wait, you're leaving me high and dry on the rent here? He's like, well, yeah, moving in with Cindy. And it's like, no 2 months, no 60 days notice, no, nothing, no, like, hey, can I help? I'll keep giving you rent money until, we figure something out, or I don't want to leave you high and dry. It's just like, no, I'm moving in with somebody else. And so, of course, that causes Wings to spiral. And then Wings' ex shows up. We find out that Wings' ex had been cheating on him with William Smith. And Wings is like, well, I'm not giving you any alimony money because I don't have any money to give you. So she like rips her shirt, calls the cops and says, he attacked me. And the cops are like, okay, well, fine, we'll arrest Wings and let the judge hear it. And of course, the judge is William Smith. I think it's when we find out that William Smith became a judge is that he's hearing his case. But all of this is precipitated by John Hart's character just being like, yeah, sorry, I'm moving back in with my girl. Aren't you happy for me? Yeah, sorry, yeah, all that rent money and utilities, all that stuff I was helping you out with, yeah, that's not happening anymore.
But in John DeHart's defense, Pamela Bryan is very hot. So
exactly. But
because why else would you have 3 5+ minute sex scenes with her that are as gratuitous of a sex scene as anything in the room or any kind of Skinamax movie, but at least in the even like in a Skinamax movie, the guys at least are like toned or like look like a male model, where as this one you have a Playboy playmate in John DeHart.
Exactly.
And we have to mention the great scene where they're kissing in bed and he goes to put the champagne glass on the nightstand, and like you see like just like some crew member grabbing the glass from it. And that moment I think crystallized. They're like, okay, that's that little moment. Just you got to bring Ed Wood into the conversation when you have moments like that. So it's definitely John Hart's up there with the greats, the Ed Woods, the Neil Breens. I mean, it just one little moment like that can just kind of be the cherry on top.
Exactly. It's so beautiful. Now that first love scene, I don't know about you, but I thought we were going to get off easy on the first love scene because they do what movies normally do when they're cutting away and then showing us that time has elapsed. They go to the fireplace. And usually when you cut to the fireplace, it's sort of like, and then you cut away from the fireplace, it's just, okay, here's, they're about to make love, cut to the fireplace, then cut back to them being in bed after the fact, right? That's what I thought was happening. But no, they're just showing us the fireplace just to show us the fireplace. And then it's like, and like you said, I mean, this is like Jean-Claude Van Damme action movie, kind of, where it's like he's pulling out ice cubes and he's rubbing her nipples with the ice cubes. Yeah, it's great. And then is it the second or the third one where they're in the tub and the bathtub, it has like what looks like a seafood restaurant, like next with like plastic like shellfish hanging off of it. I mean, the only thing that was missing was like the lobster buoy. And I mean, it's like, is that his bathtub that he has like this like stuff adorning the walls in his bathroom? Yeah, that was amazing. And then, of course, they have the love scene after they get married. And I think that's the one with the champagne glasses, right? Is that the one?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like that first sex scene. It almost feels like it should have been a montage,
right?
But it's just all they didn't know how to like have like the camera like dissolve in between the cuts, so it's long because they're like, yeah, we'll fix it in post, and nobody fixed it in post because it just goes on forever.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's a trip. I mean, all three of them are a trip, but yeah, it's again, again, I think when you think about these kinds of movies, normally you'd watch something like this and you'd say, okay, well, this is okay, this is the vanity project, the guy having his love scene. Yeah, this is ridiculous. Like, okay, but these are so goofy that you can't help that they just add to the overall tone. And I think, again, if the people you're watching this movie with will get a kick out of this kind of thing, then it works and it's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, like the sex scene aspect alone like kind of makes this like the Room of 90s action movies, because the only other person I can think of that would give themselves that long gratuitous sex scene that really it's just gratuitous. There's no reason for it. It doesn't advance the plot. It just, and usually in these movies, like, one sex scene, that's enough to let the audience know, okay, this girl is going to die, because now that they've consummated their marriage, now they have to kill her off, and then that's what's going to be the impetus for him to get revenge. No, we're gonna have a couple more.
Exactly.
So settle in, settle in. There's gonna be a few more of these folks.
Right. And I mean, they kind of come, like you can kind of see them coming, but by the same token, it's like when they get back together, it's just yeah. And then they also have these awkward moments where they're supposed to be rekindling the romance that are outside of the love scene. Like there's one where they're sitting in a swing together. And she's got her feet up, and this is where she's telling him the story about the satanic cults, and he's just like, "Oh, that sounds really rough that you had to do that satanic cult thing." And it's just like this nice little swing that they're lying together on, and yeah, it's but the other thing we should point out about these love scenes is that every single one of them is backed by a John DeHart original song.
Yes, and I mean, honestly, I'm a Shimmy Slide guy.
Right.
I'm always going to be Shimmy Slide guy. But these songs are, and it's like one of those things where you kind of get the point after about 30 seconds, but like everything else in the scene, it just keeps going. And it's like this kind of droning kind of, I like, I can't say like first round of American Idol bad, but it's up there with the Hollywood Week or whatever. I think Simon would have said that, yeah, that's a no, and Randy would have been that's a no for me, dog, and Paula would have kicked him out too.
There's one where he keeps saying, I think it's "Are you going to love me everlastingly" or something like that, and it's like he just seems like he's so enamored with the word "everlastingly" or whatever
The
word he is.
phrasing is odd. Yeah,
Yeah,
but that's what makes it, because if it made sense, we would, it would become background noise.
right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, and it's just kind of like one of those things where, you're just kind of scratching your head at what you're hearing and what you're seeing.
Right. And it's there's a backing vocal, or actually, a lot of times they're duets with a woman named Lisa Verduft, and so she kind of does the songs with some of the love songs and things like that. Yeah, it's because again, this is sort of this is an element of this that isn't Orson Welles. I think of somebody else like Peter Jackson, who wrote, directed, produced, and starred in Bad Taste. None of them did their own music. None of them did their own songs, which it would have been interesting to hear Orson Welles sing his own songs for Peter Jackson, but they probably would have sounded like John DeHart, only they would have been like, I sound like John DeHart. I don't want to sound like that. I don't want people to hear this.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where I think, like I said, when I first saw the Shimmy Shake on, or Shimmy Slide on, now you got me saying Shimmy Shake. I'm thinking of Shake Shack. But the on B Zone, the Roku channel, they had, I want to say they had a week. I think it was the Steve Barkett movie, The Aftermath. I think it was this. I think it was a Neil Breen movie, and they called it Egosploitation. And I think that's the perfect kind of moniker for these kinds of movies, where it's just kind of like a one-man show feeding his ego for 90 minutes and then something.
Now, an interesting point about this when you mention that. So the cinematographer for this film is a guy named Eric J. Swanson, and when you look at his IMDb, he did, I think, 4 other movies. Let's see, 4 other movies. Each of those 4 other feature-length movies that he did, they were all movies that were written and directed by the same person. Now, I don't know if these were all one-off vanity projects for these people. The one difference is with these is that these ones, the directors didn't star in their own movies. It doesn't look like. But yeah, no, I mean, if they did only one movie, they did like 1 or 2, like these, it was one of those kinds of things. So it's almost like, I don't know if somehow this guy got a reputation in Hollywood as being like the cinematographer if you need one for your vanity project, but that's what this guy did.
Well, I mean, yeah, and I think it's kind of one of those things where a lot of people in Hollywood, either they're focus pullers or they run B cameras or something. Like they have enough experience where, like on a low budget movie like this, maybe they can handle being the DP
Yeah.
or whatever. And but yeah, it's kind of interesting because we haven't really talked about the co-director James Paradise is an actor who has never directed before either. So I have a feeling where like DeHart may have hired him just as almost like a backup, as just somebody who has film set knowledge to at least like have them around to like at least make their day, uh to get all the shots in the can. So uh especially where you have like these really long takes of stuff that like kind of just like nominal dialogue scenes or sex scenes or uh so it seems to me where they like people like knew how to make a movie, but this is the movie they made with that knowledge.
Yeah. Well, thinking about him being, to Hart being a lawyer in the LA area, he probably knew people like the co-director in this film. And James Paradise, and who knows, maybe you're just he's hanging out in that finished basement playing some Miss Pac-Man with James Paradise, and says, Paradise is like, hey, if you ever want to make a movie, I'd be happy to help you, and really, you'd help me make? Yeah, I know a good amount from I know some people. I got a guy that could be your DP probably, I know someone who knows Wings Hauser. We might be able to get him in the movie or something like that, or William Smith. And suddenly the whole thing kind of comes together. It's just over some beers and some Miss Pac-Man and John DeHart's finished basement, which I think we're very fortunate if that's how it worked. If they had those conversations and we ended up with this movie, we're very lucky that they had those conversations.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely kind of it, and as well as we go through 100 maybe 200 movies of ill repute, hoping for a movie like this. So when you get one like it, it's almost like eureka. I found it. Like you're shucking oysters looking for pearls, and finally this is you finally get this one. So
Right.
sometimes you get them in rapid succession, sometimes you have long droughts, so it's just when you get one, you just cherish it.
Yeah, and I think it's been a while. I mean, I think for me, I dug in a little bit on Amir Shervan's filmography, and obviously Samurai Cop is his claim to fame. But his other ones aren't. They're not quite the level of Samurai Cop, and they're probably not quite the level of this either. But they're kind of a fun time. But yeah, it's one of those ones where it's like you do your Miami Connection or you do your Samurai Cop, or The Room or something like that, and also this is one that people did talk about a lot, but it's like once you do it, you're just like, okay, I can add this to that list of movies and just always have you're always gonna have fun watching a movie like this.
Yeah, and there's another one I watched recently, The Instructor,
Mm.
which had the same kind of vibes, or just like everybody involved only made one movie, and that was the movie they made, and thank God that was the movie they made, because it was almost like it, 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 like it defies description. You can say yes, it's a no budget action movie, but there are like moments. It's not as good as Champagne and Bullets, but I mean, it's definitely in the conversation of a Miami Connection or a Samurai Cop, where it's just like the gangs all dress like uh, rejects from the Warriors, and everybody calls this guy like the instructor. I think he has a name, but it's just the instructor. So and the action is it's I think it's like that Venn diagram of awful and awesome that that I think fans like you and me kind of like hope for. So I would also recommend seeking that one out.
Is it about a self defense school? Is that the movie?
Well, yeah, it's basically like the rival self-defense schools,
Okay.
but there's also, um, and see that there's like the fights that don't even involve like kung fu. There's like the last 20 minutes it becomes Smokey and the Bandit, and there's this great car chase out of nowhere. I'm like, well, how did they do that? Because now I've been watching this Grade Z movie. Now all of a sudden it's actually showing some competence here. Like, it's just like it's just this grab bag of like early '80s. Hey, we have a video camera and a tax shelter or something. And we're gonna make a kung fu movie. And the Bob Chaney is his. I want to say is the lead actor's name, and he looks like if you imagine Burt Reynolds with a very nasty bee sting.
Right?
He just has and it's just like one of those perfect kind of like riff tracks kind of movies. You could riff along, or you could watch it all natural. And it's definitely that's in the conversation for one of those kind of like Z movie classics.
Yeah, I've got to see that one. So the guys at Comeuppance have reviewed it, so they've seen it as well. But yeah, it sounds amazing. All right, I'll have to try to find that one. I'll have to track it down because that sounds beautiful. The instructor, okay, that's perfect. Yeah, because when you watch one of these, and I haven't gotten into the Neil Breen yet. I think if I can find some of those available, we may have to do a Neil Breen for an episode here. I don't know, but
I am down for it because I've been through all of his filmography, and I'm a Breen fan for life, or Breen addict, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I would definitely be down for that.
I think there's something about the Vanity Project when it goes wrong like this that actually makes it more right. And it's what I love about this one is that John DeHart, and who knows, maybe John DeHart in real life is a real personable, charismatic, fun guy who, I'm sure in the process of like just hanging out when everybody's drinking, if he gets on a microphone that he's got like a karaoke machine in his finished basement, it's probably a ton of fun, and it's like, oh yeah, you sound pretty good, John, you got a decent voice. But it's not like I'm in a recording studio singing kind of voice. So I don't know, or maybe he heard enough people tell him he had a decent voice, and he thought, yeah, I'm going to make some records here. Or maybe everybody was just being nice, and they told him he had a nice voice, and he wasn't able to pick up on the fact that they were just being nice. Whatever the reason, it leads to pure gold for us that he did this.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe it was the kind of thing like, have you seen the Disaster Artist, the Making of the Room, like
No, I need to see that.
with James Franco, where basically everybody does what he says because the check clears.
Right?
There's always a scene where they go, they're not expecting to get paid, and they get paid, and then they show up, and they're like, oh, okay. And then the next shot is them cashing the check. They're like, what? We're getting paid, so it doesn't. Yeah, this is his movie. We don't care.
Well, and that's actually a really important piece of this because I've talked to people, I talked to low budget filmmakers, directors, things like that, and that's actually a huge piece of this. I mean, just recently Jesse V. Johnson had his new movie, Thieves Highway, and the producers for that film didn't pay anybody any of the below the line cast and crew. And you think a Jesse V. Johnson movie, he's a big deal. He's probably one of the top direct-to-video directors right now. The fact that one of his movies would have that happen, you go, okay, that's not great. And I've talked to actors who were talking to me about that, saying like, yeah, you run into a situation like that where a place is, movie doesn't pay you, and then you worry about whether you should make a fuss about it or not because you might get blacklisted. And so it's like, I'm sure if you're Wings, if you're William Smith, and you've been on some of these non-SAG movies where you're wondering if you're going to get paid or not, and then John DeHart's giving you a check that's clearing, it's like, yeah, I'm happy to be in this guy's movie, do whatever he wants, because at least he's not going to rip me off. And it is kind of a real thing. I never really thought about it before. It's not something that we think about. We think everybody gets paid when they do a movie, but no, that's actually not the case with these low budget ones.
Yeah, I mean, and there's so many movies that probably won't even see the light of day because there's so much like finagling behind the scenes, or people not getting paid, or distributors running off with the money. I think it was Film Ventures International, the direct, or the owner of that, ran off to Mexico with all the money. He's never been seen since. So there's plenty of just really shady dealings in Hollywood to begin with. But then, like you said, like when somebody like Jesse V. Johnson can't even get paid, it says a lot for, yeah, who's getting all the money, who's, and says it's a good point.
Yeah. Well, and I guess the other thing too is back in 1993, if you have something like a Champagne and Buzz, I mean, we talked about this before when you were on, when we talked about wave movies, mail order, or was it, mail order murder? Was that what I quick?
Yep.
Yeah, mail order murder. We talked about the documentary on wave films, but it's like, Gary Whitson is making these shot on video movies that have these certain kink elements in them on top of like these sci-fi storylines or these adventure storylines, and video stores at the time, they needed content, so he's pumping those things out there. And by 93 you started to get the big names like Blockbuster, and so it's like, if Champagne and Bullets, I'm sure if he was able to get any kind of distribution from any source, for people that would see this thing on the shelves, he probably was able to get at least some money back. Whereas nowadays, you make something like this, and you hope you get on Tubi, and then you hope Tubi generates enough ads that you get some kind of money back for it. I wouldn't be surprised if he, making a pun on his other title of this movie, Get Even, if he broke even or something like that with a movie like this.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's a good point, because at the time, 1993, I think the name Wingshauser
Yeah.
and William Smith would be enough to get it into stores at least. And I think that was kind of like in it's also known as Road to Revenge, of whether it had different distributors down the line, or I think the cuts might be slightly different or whatever. But I think there was definitely enough people seeing this to kind of garner this kind of like slow avalanche rolling down the hill, that just with just a little stone over the years, to because I'm sure when they made this, they weren't thinking, oh, 30 years from now, two guys are going to be sitting around on their computer talking about this. So I think I think just having it out there, and having people appreciate it, whether that line their pockets or not, I think that's just like a great thing. Like you don't know what the shelf life for something like this is going to be.
Well, and I mean, now you've got a boutique Blu-ray manufacturer in Vinegar Syndrome putting out a version of it, which I think, which again, I'm always all for. I mean, I don't buy them as much as I probably should. I should probably be putting my money where my mouth is and actually like buying these kinds of things. But I think just the fact that they're willing to do something like that this movie has enough of a following that they've done. I mean, I was able to watch it on Fossum, and that was plenty enough for me. But and to your point, like when they were making this movie, I do wonder if DeHart thought he was going to make more movies after this, or if he thought like the music would take off or something. I wonder if he thought there was something bigger was going to happen, and that's why he maybe didn't make another movie after this. Was that it may have made him some money, but I guess it wasn't like the big blockbuster. I think he was. I mean, I think he probably was hoping he was going to get this distributed in movie theaters, and that people were going to go to movie theaters and watch it.
Yeah, it's really hard to say, or it might have be one of those cases where it's self-financed and he doesn't make any money with it, and that there went that dream. You know what I mean? Like, so, uh, but the fact that they say every movie's a miracle, and this one's more miraculous than a lot of other ones I've seen. So.
Exactly. Now, for people who haven't watched this movie yet, I'm going to start spoiling some things here as we start to get into the end, because we can't not talk about some of this bonkers stuff that happens at the end. So if you're listening to this and you haven't seen Champagne and Bullets, stop here, come back, go watch the movie, and then come back to hear what we want to say about this bonkers ending stuff, because we'd have to get into that. But the thing is that the baddies discover who Pamela Jean Bryant's who Cindy is, and the edict is out there. They got to take her out. So there's the wedding. And I guess we should talk about the wedding, because Wings is also off the chain in the wedding, right? He's kind of, and the funny part is actually before. Oh, geez, I'm like skipping ahead here, because before we even get to the wedding, Wings he's had to move into a new place. I guess he lost his house because of all the stuff that's happened. So he's living in this new place, and he's like maybe starting a cult or something. We don't know exactly what he's doing, but he's in a swimming pool in his clothes with the Native American statue thing on, I think, on a lawn chair. Two women, scantily clad women, women in bikinis, are floating by on, pool, like, float, kind of, things that you lie on, those floating things you lie on. And DeHart shows up and he's like, "Yeah, I'm getting married and I want you to be the best man." And Wings is just saying all kinds of random stuff to him about, like, "Hey, get in the pool with me. You got to get in here in your clothes and just let the water, feel the water," all this kind of stuff. Um, and I kind of get the sense that DeHart is going by the script and Wings is just saying whatever he wants.
Yeah, I mean, it's Wings cranked to 11. It's just like, yeah, and the fact that you say that he's saying lines from the script. I don't know if there was a script.
Right.
Per se, there may have been a notion. There may have been a thing. Is that okay? For this scene, you're going to say A, I'm going to say B, and as long as we get those plot points out, we're all good. And I think Wings, they're like, he just riffs. There's like riffs upon riffs. He's like the Miles Davis of dialogue for a '90s direct-to-video action movie. I mean, he's over here. He's going to places. The rest of the band can't keep up with him. Yeah.
Right. It's like that video of where John Coltrane was there and where they were performing together, and John Coltrane starts going, and Miles just goes and has a cigarette while he's watching him. Like Coltrane, it's kind of like the same thing where it's just like, yeah, Wings is having a cigarette. He's like finishes his cigarette, just picks up his horn and just goes to work. It's just, yeah, it's absolutely amazing. But I also kind of kick out of the fact that DeHart's like, "Yeah, I screwed you over on the bar fight, got you arrested there, screwed you over by moving out of your apartment without giving you any money or any notice. But hey, do you want to be my best man?" And Wings is like, "Sure, I'll be your best man." So, now the outfit that DeHart wears to get married is another thing of beauty. Now, I don't want to judge people for their wedding outfits. Now, Pamela Jean Bryant, she's in a dress, a white dress, which is fine. I mean, this is obviously a very small affair. There's not many people that are attending this wedding. But John DeHart, I mean, what is he? Is it like it's like a striped, like rugby type shirt that he's wearing? I don't know, because he actually wears a rugby shirt earlier in the movie.
Yeah, it's definitely of the cut from the same cloth, probably literally. I
Right.
don't know.
I mean, he couldn't just like go to J.C. Penney and get
No.
a button up shirt with even a bolo tie. No, he's
Dressed up more for to go to the bar than he did for his own
exactly,
wedding.
exactly. And then you've got Wings, who is just goofing around, like he's like dancing with, I don't know if it's an aunt or somebody for Pamela Jean Bryant's character. It's just he's just sort of dancing with her. He's goofing around and all this stuff. Now there's almost a sense with this scene from DeHart's standpoint is like he's like, "I got to get the wedding scene over with so we can have the honeymoon sex scene after." Right? It's like that's the whole point of it for him.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, I think there was more of a notion than a screenplay in it, that this is like one of the beats that we have to get through, because there was probably a discussion at some point where DeHart told Pamela Bryant 5 sex scenes, and she talked him down to 3. You know what I mean? So he probably didn't even want to do the wedding scene. He would have been fine with just like a wedding photo and moving to the next one. But
Yes, exactly. Now this is done in a hotel, so we're getting the sense that that they're having sex there. And then from there, after the sex scene, the baddies have shown up because they've gotten the word from William Smith that they need to take out Pamela Jean Bryant. And so we get this sort of this car chase where now I thought I was paying attention to the movie, and then there's a moment where, so it's the car chase, they're kind of going through these dirt roads in, I don't know, maybe some area north of Los Angeles, and they're going through the dirt roads where the car with the baddies is chasing DeHart and Bryant on a motorcycle, and then the car goes over a hill. Or sorry, the motorcycle goes over a hill, and the car pulls up to the hill, the baddies get out, look at it, laugh, and say, "All right, we're good." And I was like, I missed something, and so I rewound it back and realized I didn't miss anything. That there is no crash. We don't see the crash. We get the aftermath of the crash after.
Yeah, well, first of all, it almost takes you aback that there's actually action at this point because like the whole it was almost like I said, I think there was more of a notion in the screenplay because it was like he was probably like, oh shit, this is we're 80 minutes into this movie and I'm not even on my road to revenge yet. So he said, we got to hurry this along so I can, fight William Smith at the end. So it was either maybe the stunt didn't go right or they didn't have any stunt people per se. So they just said, okay, we're going to drive off camera and the audience is going to use their imagination.
Yeah, and so Pamela Jean Bryant's character dies. She's as far as John DeHart's concerned, he's looking her over and she's dead. And we get the funeral scene after. It's kind of like a big left turn kind of thing, which is it's kind of the left turn again. Going back to those 50s and 60s movies, which is possible that DeHart grew up watching those too, where you'd get these left turn moments where you're just like, oh man, what just happened there? Like somebody just ran over a kid, and it's like some teen gang movie in 1956, and you're just like, that's how we're ending this movie. Somebody's just getting run over or something. That's what happens here, right? We like, wow, this is crazy. We get the funeral scene, like you said, Wings Hauser sitting in the back, riffing it up. I can't remember if Wings was in a double-breasted suit for this as well, or if that was the wedding. I think it was the funeral. He's got the double-breasted suit, sunglasses, and he's just like bobbing all over the place in the background while John DeHart's sitting there like, thinking about like, what is he going to do? He's got to quote, get even, close quote. And so then there's talk about, okay, what are we going to do here? Yeah, we're going to go take these guys out and find out where they're stationed or whatever. But yeah, now it's time for them to get even. I also wonder if the funeral is in the same place as the wedding. It looked like they could be in the same spot.
Yeah, because like I said, it seemed like they're like almost cordoned off into like somebody like a neighbor's backyard. Not even their backyard. It's like the alleyway in between houses. It's like with the hedge kind of sitting there. So it's um, might have been like one of those moments where the budget completely ran out and they're like, oh, we still have to do the wedding or the funeral scene. So
Yeah.
let's just grab a camera, run in the back real quick.
Just go for it. Yeah. Now, so this is it. This is the end moment here where our hero infiltrates the baddies as they're about to do. No, they're not about to do a ritual. They're about to do a big drug deal, right? Like a Colombian cartel guy shows up with his girlfriend, and
Yeah, but it's still at the same part, like their ritual, their altar or whatever is where
right,
everything. It's like an all-purpose center. They have their drug distribution center, their sacrificial altar. It's all. I'm sure William Smith had his judge's quarters back there too.
exactly. Now we also get Chekhov's crossbow, which early, early in the film, DeHart is shooting his crossbow at targets, and then Wings shows him like, "Hey, I've got a gun here; it works better." And we never see that crossbow again until this moment when he's going in to infiltrate this place, and he starts shooting guys with the crossbow. He's taking out guys left and right. At the same time, William Smith thinks that it's the cartel's guys that are doing this. So he kills the cartel guy and his girlfriend because he thinks it's not DeHart. He thinks it's one of those guys. So it's this whole comedy of errors of like the cast just getting thinned out.
Yeah, and I thought that was a good touch where, where yeah, I'm sure there are other instances in A or B movies where that happens. Where I'm trying to think. There's one that's on the tip of my tongue, but it is kind of like one of those tropes. But it's like the movie's been kind of like I said, this like Venn diagram of awful and awesome so far. So when it actually does something that's kind of like, uh, you know, kind of like already an action trope, you're like, oh, okay, well, yeah, that's what this movie could have been all the way through if, actual, you know, filmmakers were involved. You know what I mean? So it's to see like movies where moments in the movie where it's competent. It kind of like catches you off guard a little bit.
Right. It's almost like the end of a Yojimbo style story, right? Where it's like like think like Inferno, the Van Damme movie, where it's like somebody strolls into town to get revenge, and they set the two gangs against each other. So it's like,
Right.
but it's almost like DeHart liked the idea of it, so he just inserted it like for one moment in the movie, and that was it. As opposed to, like you said, a competent movie. Pamela Jean Bryant's character gets killed off earlier in the film, and then he strolls into town and he starts like fomenting this sort of antagonism between the two sides, so that they start hating each other, and then they team up to try to beat him at the end. We just get that one moment of it there.
Well, it's also interesting what you were saying about like a movie from the 50s or 60s where these movies like that back in the day, like their climax was like literally the last 3 minutes of the movie. You would watch like a 70 or 80 minute movie, and the good guy wouldn't break into the bad guy's headquarters. So the last 3 minutes there'd be a shootout and then be a fade to black. This is almost the same thing where you wait at least 90% of the movie. I mean, until you're like, when's the final showdown gonna? And it's like almost like right at the very. I mean, most movies are like that, but it's like you have to wait till the very very end for the final showdown.
Well, and then we think he's going to take out William Smith. He gets him at gunpoint in the altar area, but he gets ambushed by William Smith's baddies, and they take him away, where he takes them out. I think this is where Wings helps him, right? And they take out those baddies, and so it's like 2 seconds later he's like, "Hey, I'm back." It's just almost like, okay, yeah, that was we. I guess we're just delaying the inevitable here for 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's and it's one of those things too where you can't have the final showdown without bringing Wings into it.
Yeah, it's perfect. Now, one of the things we also get is I don't know if it's Chekhov's like I don't know if it's Chekhov's like sacrifice knife, but in the ensuing fight between the two guys, William Smith gets a hold of his sacrifice knife and he goes to try to stab the hero with it, John DeHart with it. DeHart's able to twist it around and hit him with it, and he gets stabbed in the stomach with it. And then he has a really great death scene where he just kind of falls and this sort of lies there. It's William Smith selling the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean it's he whatever the shortcomings, shall we say, of the film, budget wise or talent wise, right? I mean, Smith still brings it. Like he's still playing a baddie from a drive-in movie from the 70s. So that is a really great moment at the end there.
Now, early, so in the middle of the film, so Wings. I forgot to mention. Well, so when Wings gets framed by his ex, and is put in jail by her, to I don't know, but to get himself out of jail, but to get himself hospitalized because he's just sort of lost it at this point. A cleaning guy comes by, and Wings grabs his bleach bottle and starts drinking the bleach. So
that's how great this movie is. You can forget a moment like that.
Right, exactly.
Like we're what like an hour and a half into this conversation. Like, oh, remember that part where Wings Hauser drinks bleach? Yeah, I forgot all about that.
Right, exactly. Now, at the same time, the other crazy thing that happens with William Smith is that Wings' ex goes back to William Smith and says, "Hey, Wings is going around telling people that you deal drugs and stuff like that." And he's like, "Well, what are you doing talking about talking about me with Wings?" And she's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "You shouldn't be talking about me with anybody. This is, And he's like, "Okay, you know what? You need to be punished." And so she leans over the desk and he spanks her. He like pulls up her shirt and then kind of slightly pulls down her underwear and spanks her. And I mean, again, William Smith just does it. Like, I can't even imagine what that scene would be like if you're filming it, right, where you've got the camera person and they're like cut action and all that stuff, because it's just completely out there. So you get these two moments of just completely out there-ness that, again, like to your point, if it wasn't a script either. I mean, did Wings say I want to do this scene and like give me a bottle of something that looks like a bleach bottle, put some water in, let me do this, and then I, I don't know where all of it comes from, but it's just two kind of back to back wacky scenes.
Yeah, I mean it's and also one point we didn't go over too is in the opening raid scene, Wings gets shot in the stomach.
Right? Yes, yes.
And John DeHart has to kind of like step up and kill all the bad guys, and he's Wings is on the ground like howling and wincing in pain, and then he seems perfectly okay for the rest of the movie. Like it's not mentioned, or it is just like Wings can take a bullet in the stomach and keep right along chugging. So, it was just, again, it was just like one of those things where like I don't think there was a script because uh, usually it's somebody getting shot in the stomach is usually addressed later on in the
Right.
film.
Well, the other thing is that I thought that was going to be it for Wings' character, that he was going to die. And then the next scene, he's in court. And I'm like, whoa, okay, we got more Wings here. I'll take it. I was expecting that to be it for him, which, I mean, who knows? Maybe that was the case. Maybe, that was supposed to be it for Wings. And he was like, no, the check cleared. I'll do some more scenes. um, but the place that, after Wings drinks the bleach, he's in the hospital. He's been hospitalized. And of course, John DeHart, who again is the reason Wings is there, because he completely abandoned him when he was expecting to get help for the rent and everything, shows up and is like, hey, things aren't so bad. And actually, I talked to the court, and William Smith's off your case. You don't have to worry about that anymore. And I've all this kind of stuff. But Wings is like hitting on a nun who's come to like try to like tell him that he needs to find God. And it's kind of a trip because like the nun is like going back to like, oh, God works in mysterious ways, and you never know when he's going to show up in your life and all this kind of stuff. And Wings is like hitting on her, and she kind of digs it. But again, it's like Chekhov's nun, because we don't realize we're going to be seeing this nun later.
Yeah, and it's like that whole drinking bleach scene. I wonder if that kind of crept in from DeHart's day job. I wonder if he may have had or heard of a client that didn't want to be in jail, wanted to at least maybe be in the hospital instead of the jail cell. So they just swallowed a bunch of bleach. I don't. It's like it's just like one of those things that most normal movies wouldn't even think of putting in there, but maybe it was a slice of life kind of bit.
No, you make a good point, because that's probably the case, right? That you could, especially if you're like kind of a nonviolent, or in his case, it was sort of like, though he did attack police officers, so I guess I don't know if
Yeah.
but you make a good point that it's probably something that DeHart did notice. Like he had a client who was in prison, didn't wanted to get out of jail, or wanted to get out of jail. It was so bad in there, so he drank bleach and ended up in the hospital. And DeHart had to go see him there. That makes as much sense as anything.
We're grasping at straws here.
Exactly. Exactly.
At least there are straws to grasp still.
Exactly. Well. So this nun. This is not the only time we see this nun, even though you'd think that that's it for the nun. But after DeHart gets his revenge on everybody, he goes to visit his late wife's grave, and he's going through this whole flower arrangement thing. And it's a very involved thing that takes a lot of time. And so the nun shows up, and she's trying to talk to him, trying to talk about God and things like that. And but really, her big thing is she needs a ride home. And DeHart's like, well, I'd like to spend more time on my flower arranging at my wife's grave. And she's like, but I really need a ride back to the hospital if you could give me one. And he's like, I mean, I guess I could leave this for right now, drop you off, and come back and finish. Yeah, that sounds good. Which, even that like level of like, detail, like this idea that like he's so involved doing the flower arranging that he can't possibly give this nun a ride back to the hospital. And how did the nun end up there too? That she needs a ride back. Like, I don't know. I mean, I guess we know, right, why she ended up there, because he goes back to the hospital, and lo and behold, Pamela Jean Bryant faked her death so that William Smith and company would, go off the, wouldn't keep chasing her or whatever. But for some reason, they couldn't tell him that, so he almost dies in the process of getting revenge for her.
Yeah, it's one of those kind of, like I said, like I don't know if there was a script because the way, like, usually you pull the rug out of from your audience, you don't do it from your main character. You're just like, oh yeah, things kind of like the scene in the Wedding Singer where he's like, things I should have known yesterday.
Right.
Like, he
Right.
could have been killed avenging someone that didn't need to be avenged, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, he's so happy to find out that his wife is still alive that he's okay with it. But by the same token, it's like, yeah, I mean, it would have been funny if she even just had a line like, yeah, we had to fake my death, but I didn't think you were going to go on this big violent rampage thing. I probably would have said something to you if I'd known.
Yeah, it could have ended with like the more you know little bumper.
Right, right. It's the crazy bonkers ending though that this movie needed. I think it's like the punctuation mark, the bonkers punctuation mark on a classic. I don't know if this is quite the classic it is without that ending.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just proof that, sometimes, the best things happen from people that don't know what they're doing. They don't know the rules, so they can't break them, so to speak. That's just like one of the many examples throughout the movie where it's like, um, yeah, it's just like, there are no limits to your imagination, uh, and there are no rules to break it if you're not playing with a full deck anyway. So.
Yes, yeah, that's a fascinating point because I think again about Samurai Cop with Amir Shervan, and I always kind of knowing his story, right, where he moved to the United States after the revolution in Iran, and it's kind of funny to think about how he moves to America to get away from the revolution, and he makes Samurai Cop and some of the other movies, while his cohorts that stay behind in Iran make like this sort of this like renaissance of Iranian film that yes, they had all of the restrictions of the Iranian government, but you get like Abbas Kiarostami and Mohsen Makhmalbaf, and all these really great names that came up with Shirvan roughly around the same time, who like make these darlings of the international film circuit. But the thing was, is they were making Iranian films. They were making movies about Iran. They understood the culture. They grew up in Iran, so they could make those movies. Whereas Shirvan comes to America, and he's like, "Oh well, Americans, they're making action movies. They make because I think that's kind of the thing in Iran is that they look at American films and think, oh, okay, oh Quentin Tarantino, right? He just that's the kind of movies that they make over there. And so Shirvan comes to here, and he's like, I'm going to make Rambo. Or I'm going to make whatever. And so it's kind of funny to see, like, to your point about the rules, not knowing the rules, Shervan got the rules all wrong. It's like, when I go to see a Yankees game here and on the East Coast, more so than any other team here in the East Coast, because you go to a Yankees game, you get tourists and from other parts of the world. And I remember going to a game one time where there were French tourists trying to make sense of a baseball game, and they just like, oh, somebody hit the foul pole and got a home run. They're like, okay, I remember one of them like doing his fingers circling around, like, yeah, whatever reason, you just get to run all the bases, right? It just doesn't make any sense. And that's kind of the way I see Shervan's movies. Is he's like the tourist going to Yankee Stadium and trying to make sense of baseball, even though they've never seen it before. And so we get this magic of him reflecting back what he thinks our movies are, them kind of going through his lens. Whereas, yeah, DeHart's different because he had some sense of the rules, but didn't know them fully himself, and so he. Like you said, he didn't know when he was breaking them. And we get these kind of magical moments that we wouldn't get from somebody who's just like, okay, here's how to write a 3-act movie, and this is when these things should happen, kind of thing.
That ties into the fact that you got guys like Wings and William Smith who maybe aren't going to pipe up and kind of tell him
Right.
he's kind of out of his element because, again, the check cleared. So I don't want to lose that check, so let him. And he's let me improvise these long tirades, so I'm not going to lose my meal ticket here.
Well, and I wonder because I mean, Wings in particular, he'd been directing his own movies for PM before this. I wonder if Wings had the same feeling that we did about it. Like, let's see where this whole thing goes because it's this sort of weird magic that you don't get when people who know what they're doing make a movie. I wonder if there was a bit of that sense of anarchy in Wings and wanting to see the whole thing happen.
Yeah, definitely. I can see that shaking out that way because he's he's like one of those guys who's very interesting that when he is playing more or less a straight character in like either a PM movie um or like e- even like in say like Tales from the Hood, where he's playing just a cop, or you know what I mean. But he brings that Wings energy to it, so it's very much a Wings Hauser movie. But he's towing the line of the script of the expectations of the genre or whatever. And then there are movies like Vice Squad where he kind of tiptoes over into like this, kind of like a uh, Wings Overdrive kind of momentum, like LA Bounty and stuff. And then here it's like, the there's no parachute, there's no training wheels. It's just balls to the walls Wings. And he probably played it straight maybe for the first 2 days of filming or so. And then he's like, let's see how far I can go with this without being reined in. And I think that once he found that sweet spot, I think he wasn't going to give that up.
No, that's a really great point because yeah, thinking about some of these roles like you talk about. I mean, in the late '80s when he did Tough Guys Don't Dance, that was the movie that I reviewed when he passed. And Norman Mailer had this really weird sense. He was directing his own book, or he's directing the adaptation of his own book. And the Canon guys were just like, "Oh, this is fantastic, Mailer. I mean, we got Mailer. He wants to direct the movie of a book that was a huge bestseller, and it's Norman Mailer, one of the greatest writers of the last half of the 20th century. Sure, yes, let's have him do it." And when Mailer made the movie, he had this very different idea of what he wanted to make the movie be. It was kind of all over the place, and it was almost like he was doing a parody of it, or and he was like throwing things together. And the character that Wings plays, it's in the book, he doesn't fit the character in the book. Like Wings couldn't play the character in the book, but for Mailer's adaptation, that what he was doing, I think he liked that sense of danger that Wings brought. That like Wings could just kind of be all over the place, and it is fascinating when you get these different roles with Wings, where it's like when you watch him in a scene, you just think like, man, he might do something off, and this movie takes it to another level where you wonder like how much John DeHart knew what Wings was going to do at a given time. I wonder if he was actually inebriated at certain points and just DeHart's like, we got the scene, let's just go with it. And but you're just like there's some of those scenes in the bar where you're just like, man, I don't think I'd want to be anywhere near Wings in that scene. Like I don't want him putting his arm around me, asking me if I want a drink or something like that. But that sense of danger brings this interesting quality that for this movie, it just again elevates it to a different level.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this is like a 7 layer dip of just yeah, WTF, and he's that layer that kind of the cream cheese or whatever that holds it all together, that kind of makes everything congeal, and because you've got the topping of just like the bonkers ending. You've got the gratuitous sex scenes. You've got the shimmy slide. You've got all these. You have all the satanic cult. You have all these layers, and in the middle there, as Wings just bringing it all home.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, William Smith, the last thing that I saw William Smith in before this was I did a rewatch of Red Dawn for the Exploding Helicopter podcast. And what's fascinating is that while Wings is so all over the place and you don't know what you're going to get, I mean, William Smith is playing the same baddie that he played in Red Dawn. And to be fair, Red Dawn is about as ridiculous as this movie is, right? This idea of like this invasion happening and, the Wolverines and all that stuff, right? It's kind of just as goofy. Uh, and there's almost that sense that William Smith knows that, right? That he knows, whether I'm playing this Russian, the Soviet who's, part of this invasion and I'm going to kill, Patrick Swayze, or he's going to kill me at the end or whatever's going to happen. He's like the same thing of this pilot on baddie where I'm a crooked cop. I deal drugs. I run a satanic cult. I'm now a crooked judge. Just keep piling them on. Just keep giving me more baddie things. But he just is the same baddie that he is. I mean, I remember seeing him on a Rockford Files episode. It's the same William Smith baddie that you get in the Rockford Files episode or Red Dawn as you get here, which I think is such a interesting counterbalance to the Wings energy.
Yeah, and it's always, it always throws you off when you see him playing a good guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like Invasion of the Bee Girls or Conan. It's like who else could give birth to Schwarzenegger? Yeah, like William Smith. But when you see him in these like like Darker Than Amber or like these like kind of Black Samson, like he just has like that granite jaw, that gravelly voice, and it's just that presence. And he's one of those guys where you kind of do a little fist pump whenever he kind of shows up in a especially like this era when he was still kind of reduced to playing the the baddie or the crooked cop or whatever. So he's just one of those presences that just kind of amps a movie up, and to have him as another layer of this 7-layer dip of awesomeness, it's just a glorious thing.
It is. It really is. And I mean, as you get to this period of his career, like 93, 94, he was doing a lot of like one-off scenes. I think, another name that I would put with that would be Napier, Charles Napier, where you'd see their name in the credits and you'd think, okay, well, how much am I going to get of this person in the movie? And it might just be like a scene here or there, William Smith would just sit behind a desk and yell at the cop on the edge and tell him like, you got to get it together. And then you find out at the end that William Smith was in on the thing the whole time, right? Yeah, same thing with Napier. And so again, the fact that we get more William Smith than just that in 1993, I think is kind of a special thing too.
Yeah, and then like one of my favorite William Smith, not even, I guess it was a moment, I don't know, but in Uncle Sam,
Right.
he's in it in the very beginning. But then he has that poem that he reads over the final credits, and it's just like that he wrote because he was a poet too.
Right.
I mean, he was like a real Renaissance man, and it's like it lends like a gravitas to that movie where you're like, this is just like a silly 4th of July themed slasher, but I mean, he really brings it like just like this um, just like almost like the slam poetry at the end, and it's just glorious.
Yeah, that's another movie that's just a real fascinating one because I think Spiro Rosados did stunts on that one too.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I think he did the. I want to say he did like that cannonball, where he goes through the house.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I think because he did that big fire effect. I think.
Right.
I could be wrong, but I mean he's known for his big fire sequences.
Yeah, I think that's so. It's like it's got that layer as well. William Lustig directed it. It's I think I didn't like it because Uncle Sam was gross. I think that was what I didn't like. I didn't like that he was all gross and stuff. But yeah, it's some of these movies that we got around this time. It's I mean, granted, Uncle Sam is definitely a higher quality than Champagne and Bullets. I think Champagne and Bullets is more fun than Uncle Sam, but it's definitely a different kind of animal. But yeah, some of these names that you'd get in these movies that would go on to do bigger things, it's always crazy.
Yeah, and and too like Pamela Jean Bryant, she kind of had a fairly big career too,
Yeah.
mostly in television, doing like guest spots and stuff. But I mean, she was no slouch either. So like I said, like the fact that the cast is anchored with these pretty big names, and then you have John the Heart kind of being the central focus. Again, it's just one of the joys of the movie where he's uh, kind of front and center, where all these kind of more established people are kind of lurking in the background.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you were watching reruns of shows from the '70s and '80s, you were probably going to catch, when you look through Pamela Jean Bryant's, IMDb bio. I mean, Dukes of Hazzard, Incredible Hulk, T.J. Hooker, all the usual suspects, Barnaby Jones. She was doing all of those kinds of shows, and I think that's another one where it's like, John DeHart was able to get her in this film. Her, I don't know, her career was drying up, but she probably wasn't getting those roles as much as she was before. And granted, I think too, those roles weren't as available as much too. I don't know, but there weren't as many Hulk episodes or Dukes of Hazzard episodes for her to guest on it. So, he was able to, I mean, the other thing I wonder too is if DeHart had enough money that he was paying all of them more.
Yeah, and this may be the case. I don't know, but I think I can't remember. She was Playboy Playmate 78 or 80, somewhere thereabouts. But the fact that she's maybe like 13, 15 years after that, and the fact that she still looks as great as she does, and she's willing to do these long sex scenes, that might have been a point of pride for her to be like, look, I can still do these roles. A lot of actresses, they Hollywood kind of chews them up and spits them out when they're like, mid-30s. So maybe this was her way of like kind of reclaiming, her sex symbol image and saying, I can still do these kinds of roles. Unfortunately, I'm doing them with John DeHart.
Yeah, but she could definitely look like she's way out of his league, which I think is, I think is
Absolutely. Yeah, that's part of the charm too, is
right.
that, it's you've got a 10 with a 2 there.
Right.
Which gives us all hope, maybe one of these days we'll be the John DeHarts of.
Right. Yeah, well, because that's to your point, it's like I think that's always a big, maybe that is probably a selling point for something like this, where she can say like, yeah, I get to be a 10 in this movie, and I get to be way out of this guy's league. People wonder why he would be with me, and but that's part of it, and I think a lot of the roles she was probably getting to this point were smaller things. So to be, the leading lady in a movie like this, where she, and she's just got to endure 3 love scenes with Hart, which I've had actors on to talk about what it's like shooting love scenes, and I don't know if it would have been a similar process with John Hart, but it's not a fun experience, and so, but she earned her money on this film for sure.
Well, I have to wonder if I don't think there were any outtakes. I think they put everything into the movie that was shot, because it's just like some of those scenes, it's like they just let the camera run, and like he forgot to call cut.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's he was definitely wanting to, I don't say get his money's worth. I don't know what the right word is for that, but he definitely was like, I'm the leading man. I'm going to have these love scenes, and but he wanted these scenes to be long enough, in part so that he could be doing his thing in them, I think, but also he wanted them to be long enough so that uh, he could have his songs play in their entirety over the love scene as well.
You may have hit the nail on the hammer on the head there with the hammer, because yeah, the it, it, the only thing I could say to that is they're not kind of placed well. Like they don't really flow with the editing. They're just kind of needle drops, and then they just play out, and it's yeah. I think you hit upon something there.
Yeah, well, because that's the other thing, right? He's also got to do the mute, like there's like you said, part of this 7-layer dip is that he's not only trying to showcase his acting and filmmaking, but he's trying to showcase his music abilities as well, and so he's got to always get that in there too.
Yeah, it, it's, and you have to wonder too, like, was it a chicken or the egg kind of thing?
Right.
Did he have these ideas for these wild, outlandish sex scenes and then had to write songs to, or did he have the songs first? And
Right.
then he's like, let's bring the sex scenes on. So
That could be too. I never thought of that. Yeah. It, yes, it could have been any kind of a multi-polygenesis kind of thing that's like, where it's like, okay, well, I want to get my songs in this movie. Oh, well, I can do the love scenes. It's the perfect place to put the songs in. Okay, this is great, because the other thing about the Shimmy Slide is it's the only time in the film that he actually performs one of his songs in the movie. The rest of them, they're just recorded and played in the background. So that's, I mean, it kind of comes out of nowhere that he just does this song and then that's it. He never does another song again.
yeah, and one thing we really didn't hit upon is the country line dancing, because at the time that was like the biggest thing going on in pop culture, probably. So I think the fact that I don't know if they saw it as dollar signs in their eyes, like, oh, let's put some country line dancing in here as kind of like to boost sales, like, or if it was just kind of there were people already there like, hey, do you guys know how to line dance? We need to make the dance floor look full. So it's one of those things where it's just, it kind of like, it's a perfect snapshot of that time. It's like, because a little bit before or after that, you wouldn't have any line dancing in any movie anywhere. But this is that perfect moment in time where you would have just gratuitous country line dancing. And because of that, it's a perfect time capsule.
That's another great point because it was like this early 90s period. I mean, you had like, as I don't want to say as seen on TV, but you had like those, like videos, like how-to videos that they would sell that you could order, cash on delivery for the country line dancing. Yeah, it would appear in a lot of movies when characters would, a fish out of water scene, with a character, there'd be the line dancing. I remember the Real World in Los Angeles. You had John, the country singer from Kentucky, who, they go back to his hometown where he performs and everybody's doing line dancing. And it's like, MTV, the Real World, they want to make sure they got all the footage of that there. And that was all around the same time. And, but it was something that like, yeah, came and went pretty quick, but it was interesting when it was a thing. Cause it was like something that everybody did as opposed to, like just country music fans or something like that.
Yeah, now like it's fun going to like the thrift stores and seeing all those VHS tapes, how the line dance, like
Right.
just kind of like cluttering up the video shelves at the thrift store.
Yeah, like what was one of like they would show you how to do like the achy breaky was one of them. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So achy breaky. So Billy Ray Cyrus had not only did he have like that song be a big hit, but he had his own line dance that went along with it. And so there were a few that had like their own line dances and everything. And so everybody would get in there and do like those different dances.
Yeah, it was like one of those things like, you had to be there, I mean, it's like, sure, grandma, go back to the home. No, no, we were line dancing back in my day.
Right, exactly, exactly. Perfect. Yeah, speaking of the line dancing thing, and this being a vanity project for DeHart, I just thought of this now. But do you think that he thought the Shimmy Slide was going to take off and be like the achy breaky or something like that?
That's that's a possibility. I didn't even think about that. I just thought of it as just like another, like notch in the film's gun belt. Uh, but yeah, I mean, it's truly possible that, while he's doing his day job as a lawyer, he has dreams of being a country star. He has dreams of being a movie star, and he finally gets enough time and money together to do it. And when the time comes to point the camera at him, he just kind of he just has like this. The only way I can describe is the deer in the headlights, and he gets through the song, but that kind of like kid at his like first recital, like feel gives it a special energy you just don't get with, say, had it been like, a big Vegas production number or something.
Right. No, that's a great point too. And I mean, it's there's a combination of the fact that like he's performing for the first time on camera like that. He's probably not used to lip syncing because that's like a different thing as well. And then it's like you said, but that's I never really thought of it before. That's like the perfect way to describe it is the kid's first recital. Yeah, I just think of myself as a in like fourth grade with my friends lip syncing to Welcome to the Jungle or something like that. Like, I guess we had a little bit more going on first because we had Axl Rose to like emulate when we were doing that. But, I don't know, but that's like probably the best way to describe it. I mean, for people who haven't seen it, I believe it is on YouTube that, that the clip of that at least.
Yeah, and definitely, that if you watch the Shimmy Slide, that will get you, uh, they'll wet the palate for this movie, and you'll just want to see more because the movie is the Shimmy Slide, but it's so much more than that.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. And I was yeah, it was like I was trying to think as there's something I was thinking about like with the as far as the Shimmy Slide and him performing it that it's just and I don't know I can't for some reason I lost my train of thought. I may have to edit this part out. I don't know, but yeah, it's again it's just this idea with these vanity movie makers where sometimes you watch it and you're just like get over yourself. I think Ty and I a lot of times we do Alexander Nevsky movies, and it's just like and he obviously somehow he's able to get all kinds of names in his movies, but it's always like him playing this character who like kind of walks into a saloon and you see his boots and you see his cowboy hat and it's like, oh, what a big tough guy Alexander Nevsky is or something like that, and you're kind of like get over yourself, what's going on here. But when they go like this, they're like a special kind of fun that you don't get with any other kind of movie, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when Steven Seagal does a vanity project, he stands up at a podium and lectures us about the environment. When John DeHart does it, he does it as a way to try to advance his country music career. So you know what I mean. I think movies like this, I throw On Deadly Ground in there. The Room, all the ones that we've been talking about. I think when you see a film like this, it draws back the curtain on the stars, who they really are, and you get a glimpse into a part of themselves that maybe is a thinly veiled version of themselves, or it's just themselves, a part of themselves that they've been wanting to show you for a long time. And when you see John DeHart, he shows way too much of himself as it is in this movie. But it's just kind of a fascinating look behind the curtain into, kind of what makes someone like John DeHart tick.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I wonder too, like if he was a little bit younger, like if he was more like our age, where we grew up, obviously grew up in the 90s, but then like in the 2000s and 2010s is when we kind of become his age, and we have like, blogs, like, Blogger and Live Journal, things like that. We've got podcasting. We've got all these ways that we've got, Create Space on Amazon where you can self-publish novels. We got all these ways where we can kind of get our ideas out that didn't really exist back then. I mean, back then you could maybe do underground zines, or but I mean, could you see John DeHart doing an underground zine to get his ideas out, or radio? I guess you could have like independent radio or you know public access TV. But for someone like a John DeHart, I don't think he would see any of those avenues as the way that he would want to do it. He would, he's in Hollywood and he's like, no, I'm going to make a movie. And it's going to be interesting to see how many more of these kind of vanity projects we get now that people have so many other ways to get their ideas. I mean, I wonder if, things like Twitter, the fact that people can just post their opinions wherever they want and everybody sees them, if it makes it harder for people to want to go the full vanity project route anymore.
Yeah, I mean, especially, when you have like influencers that are full of themselves anyway, and they can hop online
Yeah.
all hours of the day posting stuff about me, where in the day, back in the day, you had to get money and film and a crew and all this stuff together to put your uh, self out there. So it's maybe technology being so readily available will curb that. But then also you have like somebody like The Weeknd,
Yeah.
who made Hurry Up Tomorrow, which I have not seen, but by all accounts it's terrible. So they're still out there, but I think kind of they're going to be more readily available. Those means are more readily available to people that are already famous, as opposed to someone like a John DeHart trying to make a dent into the movie world. Now you still have like a Tommy Wiseau, but again, his that was about 20 years ago, and I think things have changed, drastically since then. So who knows?
Right, because even for him, it would have been before the age of social media, and YouTube would have kind of been kind of a new thing. I mean, YouTube, you find some interesting stuff. I think the biggest thing on YouTube is fan movies, where people will make their they decide, okay, I don't like the way X superhero was dealt with in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm going to make my own version of that character from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You see that kind of thing, and people do a lot of shorts on there. But yeah, like the kind of like the long form vanity project, you'd think YouTube would be a place for it. That you don't need as much money, you can just do a few digital things. So maybe there are some out there. Maybe there are more like these out there. And people who are listening, if you've encountered any of these on YouTube, let us know, because I think it could be fascinating if there's another John DeHart who, instead of you know making a movie that gets distributed the normal way that we think of, is got something on YouTube that could be a fascinating watch.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to Neil Breen, I guess, where he still makes the movie instead of kind of putting it onto a social media platform, and he still does things that I would say our preferred method. But and I guess there was that Jennifer Lopez thing that she made for Prime. That was kind of a vanity project too. So I mean, they're still out there. I think you just have to look harder for them.
Yeah, Neil Breen is a great example, because I think to like his stuff, you'd think like his stuff would be perfect for Tubi or something, and that he would just go on Tubi and get all of his stuff up there and just collect the ad revenue from it. But they're not, right. His movies aren't available on any streamers, I don't think.
No, and I think that that grassroots approach is stuff that you would see in the 70s, like with Billy Jack, and and he's still using that kind of old model, and thank God, because I think there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, there's a with those vanity projects, I mean, yes, sometimes they can be insufferable. Sometimes you're like, okay, get over yourself. But there's also, especially when they're low budget like that, and you kind of just, you don't know what you're going to get. It's like a closer in Major League Baseball who doesn't know where their fastball is going to go. And it's sort of like, it can be scary if you're the batter, because it might come at you. But as a fan, you're like, oh, this pitcher might get 3 strikeouts here and we win the game, or I could be here all night while he's walking everybody. But at least it's almost like, as an impartial observer, you're good with either one, right? You like either result, and it is something that we might miss now, that we don't get. So like you said, Neil Breen is sort of carrying the torch for this kind of thing.
Yeah, and like I said, it's one of those things where you see a glimpse into the person's mind or their persona, and Neil Breen is just like one of those fascinating uh head scratching, just kind of like, you have more questions after you've seen all of his movies than you have answers. So I mean, yeah, like maybe next time, if we want to dig into his filmography that it's definitely worth clocking.
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating thing. I mean, I think these kind of these vanity projects, and I think this is part of the reason why I was, when you mentioned us covering this one, I thought it would be great to talk about, and talk about with you in particular, because you've seen your share of these vanity projects, so you got to know what works and what doesn't with them. And to your point earlier, you said like sometimes what doesn't work is what makes them work. So it's good it works out there. That there's something about the art of movie making that's so different from other things like writing or making music or things like that, that like when somebody puts themselves out there and really wants to go through the process of making a complete movie, there's something fascinating about that. And whether it comes out good or bad, there's something about that. I don't know, that I feel like almost like you have to appreciate it in some levels.
Well, I think it all goes back to Ed Wood.
Yeah.
And he put himself out there as much as any filmmaker ever did when he made Glenn or Glenda, especially at a time when that kind of thing was taboo.
Yeah.
And the fact that so much of his inner life is in Glenn or Glenda, and he's playing that character, which is a very thinly veiled version of himself. And you could call that a vanity project, and I think that would check a certain box, but it's also a plea for acceptance. And I think in a weird way, a lot of vanity projects are that. I think they are a plea for acceptance. Like, I'm in my skin 24 hours a day. Here's what that's like for 90 minutes. And you invite the audience in to glimpse that. And whether they quote unquote get it, if you have the actual filmmaking know-how to present your case in a coherent manner, which even Ed Wood had problems with that. But you see what I mean, where it's like, okay, here's me, accept me for me. I'm up here doing the shimmy slide. Nobody else is getting up here doing the shimmy slide, but I'm up here doing it. I may look awkward as hell, but I'm doing the shimmy slide. And I think the fact that they put themselves out there is a triumph of filmmaking, whether the film itself is quote unquote good or bad.
Yeah, and especially nowadays. And I wonder too if that's something that keeps people from doing it nowadays, because at least when this movie came out, somebody's alarm's going off. I don't know if you can hear the horn out there.
No, that's the message coming in.
That's right. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. But at least in 1993, there wasn't internet to the level of that we see now. There wasn't IMDb for sure, or Letterboxd, or any of those things. There certainly were guys like us doing blogs about movies. And so when you did a movie and you put yourself out there, it was really just a matter of like, did it sell or not? Yes, maybe you'd have like legitimate critics who might pan a movie or something, but at least you could say, okay, well that's Roger Ebert, that's what he thinks about the movie, but I still have my fans or something like that. But nowadays it's like, man, when you put yourself out there, it's like people on IMDb are going to kill you. We may be a little bit nicer, but we'll still have our things to say about a movie. It's like you're really putting yourself out there nowadays, and I think that is something where it's like I guess the people who make the movie can at least say to people like us who might make fun of them, well, have you ever made a movie? And at least, now I'll like respect that and say, yeah, I haven't made a movie. You're right. I kudos to you. I give you, I applaud you for that.
Yeah. And I mean, at the basis level, and even, people that make quote unquote better movies than this, like you said, run into problems with producers not paying them, not seeing distribution, getting sat on the shelf somewhere, never being released. Like I said, every movie is a miracle, and some are more miraculous than others. And I think the fact that this exists and we're talking about it 30 years after the fact, and there's a genuine appreciation for it, and not just kind of looking down your nose. Yes, you can make fun of it. Yes, you can have, make comments about it, but it's out of a place of love, and the fact that, you know, uh, like, you and me, we watch hundreds of movies a year, and like I said, these are the kind of movies that we just beg for, that come our way and enter our lives, and we can share them with others, and kind of spread the word.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's, when I've John Cross on from After Movie Night or PM Entertainment podcast, he always talks about not watching movies ironically. That like he wants to watch a B movie and he wants to enjoy it, whether it's
Yes.
good or bad, high quality or whatever. He wants to say he enjoyed it, even if it's got flaws. That's the main key. And I think something like Champagne and Bullets, it's easy for people to fall into that trap of wanting to watch it ironically. But you still can have fun with its flaws and all the goofiness that happens in the movie, and not watch it, ironically. Which I think is like what kind of what you're saying is that we can appreciate these films, and when you get something like this, it's a lot of fun. And I think, hopefully John DeHart, if he ever listens to some of these things, recognizes that while we're poking fun at a lot of the things which I think it should be poked fun at, right? There are a lot of things that are goofy. We also appreciate that he made this movie.
Right, because I think, if we had watched, the latest, uh, any DTV action star, whether it be Seagal, Van Damme, even Dolph, like there's a formula. There's a um, there's a sense that, okay, let's put this one out and get it on the shelves as soon as possible. Whereas this one was made with care and love and goofiness, and I think the fact that, I think John DeHart took a movie first approach, not like, is this going to sell? Is this going to, uh, you know, it, will critics like, he made the movie that he wanted to make. Every frame of the movie has his fingerprints on it, and it's almost like I said, it's like a mission statement. It's like, here I am, this is me, this is what I'm all about. Love it or hate it, this is John DeHart.
Yeah, and well, and I think to your point about the fact that he's having like these happy accidents in the movie because he doesn't know the rules, and those low budget Dolph, Seagal, Van Damme movies, especially Seagal and Dolph, they know the rules too well. They follow the rules too well. I mean, when you watch a Seagal movie, the only reason why things go wrong it is either because Seagal did something, right? Like he didn't show up for his ADR, or explained that he wasn't going to be standing in any of the scenes or anything like that. Or the movie gets to the distributor. The distributor's like, we can't in good faith put this movie out, so we need to reconfigure it. And when they reconfigure it, the rules start to get broken there. But for the most part, those movies follow the rules. You know what's going to happen in the first act, in the middle act, the third act. You know all the pieces that are going to happen. You almost never have the rug pulled out from under you. And to see something like this where, again, John DeHart, he thought he knew the rules, but you could tell that he really didn't know the rules when he was going in. And it's a lot of fun to watch happen. And it's a lot of, he put himself out there, not knowing the rules, thinking he knew the rules, but not knowing the rules. And it's something that you could appreciate him for it. Like you said, this is the movie he wanted to make, whether he knew the rules or not. And that's something you could definitely appreciate.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, so many people out there that, want to make movies, and they maybe have delusions of grandeur, or they want they want it to be an Oscar-winning movie or an indie darling or any, whatever, pick your genre. Whereas John DeHart said, "Well, I'm going to make an action movie, but I'm going to take my legal expertise, and I'm going to put that kind of to the forefront. I'm going to show you, involved booking processes and uh, and legal maneuvering and motions and hearings, and so I'm going to give you a little bit of a taste of what you don't normally get in at your typical action movie, and that includes the Shimmy Slide." and I think you're gonna like it, America, and here it is. And there may have been a silence from America for maybe a few decades, but I think America has finally caught up with the genius of John DeHart. And true genius usually isn't appreciated in its time, or at least right away. And hopefully John DeHart knows that the cult of DeHart is slowly gathering steam.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it I think one of the highest. I don't know what the term I want to use for it, but uh, one of the highest points of praise I think you can get for your movie is that somebody like Vinegar Syndrome or Severin or one of those companies wants to make a version of it. Now, granted, like MVD did Crazy Six, which I don't know if it's like, so I don't know if it's always the right thing, but I do feel like there was enough appreciation for this movie that Vinegar Syndrome said, "Yeah, we're going to put it out." And again, the movie still exists on streamers. That it's on Fossum still. So there's enough. He's created something that has enough staying power that, like you said, 30 years later we're talking about it, and 30 years later someone can go to Vinegar Syndrome's website or go to the archive or someplace like that and pick up a Blu-ray copy of this movie. And there are so many movies, especially a lot of erotic thrillers that we grew up with in the late 80s and early 90s that don't have anything. They were on cable for a minute, and there might be a VHS floating around in Europe somewhere or something, but a lot of those movies are lost. We don't know how to get copies of them. So the fact that John DeHart made a movie that we can get a copy of, and a Blu-ray copy at that, I think is something that he can at least hang his cowboy hat on after he's while he's still wearing his leather pants and everything.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And the fact that we both saw it on streaming, but the fact that physical media is probably the preferred method to go to, especially with this, because who doesn't want champagne and bullets in their home library? But I think too, it kind of goes back to I don't know if it was like a word of mouth thing, or if it's a like I said, like putting a pebble at the top of a mountain and letting the avalanche slowly roll by. I think this is a movie that has gathered steam, especially in the past 10 years or so. Um, and because I think Ty and Brett watched it maybe like 10 years ago or so.
I think
So
so.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think reviews like that, and especially when you start saying, well, when you start giving comparisons to Samurai Cop or Miami Connection, a certain portion of your audience, the light bulb goes off and say, "Oh, well, I have to see that." And the fact that I would probably put this above both of those movies in terms of just sheer kind of jaw dropping moments, I think really kind of says something. So, like, if you're using those for comparisons, then, like I said, like, if you like this, you'll like that, and you bring more people into the fold.
Yeah, well, because like you said, the Compass guys, they reviewed this in 2014. So yeah, so 12 years ago they covered this, and they mentioned it in the same breath as the Miami Connection, Samurai Cop. They also mentioned Deadly Prey, which Deadly Prey is an interesting one because I watched that one recently for the podcast with Todd Liebenau from Forgotten Filmcast. And one of the things I realized with that one is that one had more tongue in cheek in it than I thought. I think it was more self aware than some of these other ones that the goofiness, you just kind of could see it from the start. But it's still that idea, right, that you can put these movies on and people can have a great time with them. And I think, I wonder, to your point, like if, the guys from Comeuppance find this movie and it's on there, and then people are reading it on their sites at that time and think, oh, that's an interesting one. I got to check that one out. And, I know for me, a big part of it was Wings Hauser. I mean, he was in the Hall of Fame for for the DTV connoisseur. And so I wanted to do as many Wings Hauser movies as I could. And so now it's like this ability to go on IMDb and see this list of movies. And it's like, okay, well, what is this Champagne and Bullets thing? This is interesting. Oh, this is this is a wing that of course it links to the Comeuppance review, and you're like, huh, okay, this could be something here. Maybe I ought to check this out. And and again, the thing that kept me from watching it sooner was the fact that when it came to Wings's when, the in memoriam post, I thought, well, he can't be in it enough. Maybe I'll do something else for that post. But it's one I'd always been meaning to watch for a long time. And then when you were like, we got to talk about this one, and I was like, okay, well, I'll definitely now I had the impetus to make it happen.
Yeah, and I mean, just any opportunity really to kind of have a platform to talk about a movie like this. And like I said, like it was one of those where my friend brought it over and I was like, oh yeah, and I'd seen bits and pieces, and I showed my daughter and she's like, oh my god, yes. And then when I rewatched it for the podcast, she's like, I'm watching it with you, right? I'm like, yeah, come on. So we were cracking up the whole time once again. So it's definitely it lends itself to like a big group, and like there are some of these elements that maybe not be for everybody, but if you kind of already know that getting into it, I mean it's fun, and that's honestly what you want from any movie. I mean maybe not Sophie's Choice, but you want to be entertained. Entertained is so you, whether you laugh or you cry or you do the shimmy slide, you want to be entertained, and I think this movie gives you all that and more.
Now you mentioned your daughter watched this, so I have to ask. Between this and the Rare Blue Apes of Cannibal Isle, did she have a preference either way? Or?
I think she likes Rare Blue Apes. I think that's still going to be the OG goat of WTF movies that we've watched together.
Yeah. That is one that I think when we did that episode, people I was like showing pictures and stuff like that, and I think people just didn't know what to make. I mean, it's so bonkers. It is kind of funny that like there are so many more levels from Champagne and Bullets that you can go as well. That I think that's probably another element of this that people, for us watching these kind of things, the levels below Champagne and Bullets that we've seen, that I think people don't understand when they watch a Champagne and Bullets and they want to give it a 1 star on IMDb or something like that. It's like, no, there are a lot of levels you could go. I mean, the fact that John DeHart wasn't talking to blue ape puppets and crocodile puppets and people dressed up like that, like the fact that he didn't go there is at least one mark in his favor.
Well, yeah, it's a very odd spaghetti graph of when you start getting into like low budget movies and where you can go, from here, and but like my like and like your friend was saying before, you watch these things not ironically. You want to be entertained, whether you're being entertained by uh, you know uh, apes that are blue that sing and dance, or you're being entertained by John DeHart who sings and dance. Is it's, you just hope for a fun time, and I think too. And I'm speaking for myself here. There is like a little bit of jadedness that goes in because I watch so much stuff, especially like on Tubi now. So you're always, when you do find something that's even is able to kind of just sneak some goofy, entertaining, and sometimes even like kind of surprisingly heartfelt stuff in there. The antennas go up and you're like, okay, this is makes it worth going through those other 60 or 70 movies in my queue that were just dog crap.
Yes, no, exactly. Because the thing with the Tubi movie is you've got like the Randall Emmett, the Emmett for Oasis kind of. There's like this cynicism sometimes with how movies are kicked out nowadays, and I think that's another thing that can be refreshing about watching something like this is that it's not like there's a producer somewhere who's saying like, okay, how many names can we get? How fast can we pump this out? I've got the distribution deal with Tubi, or I've got the distribution deal with Hulu or whoever. We'll get it on there, as quick as possible. And, we're going to we're going to film it for as little as we can so we can get it up on one of those sites and get the ad revenue and all that kind of stuff. There isn't that sort of that like assembly line cynicism that we see so much today that back then, even with companies like PM that were kicking stuff out, or Canon who were pumping stuff out, or Troma or whoever, that even they didn't have the cynicism. And I think it is a little refreshing when you watch something like this, where John DeHart's not saying to himself, like, okay, I want to get this thing done in 5 days and, like, get it, splash Wings Hauser and William Smith on the cover. And, I mean, half the covers just have John DeHart on them, or John DeHart and Pamela Jean Bryant. So that's another element of this that, like, you kind of long for when you watch a lot of stuff on Tubi, when you're just like, God, they just wanted to kick this thing out. And they didn't really care.
And, in the fact that he was able to put such a stamp on it. Like, a John DeHart movie when you see it. Well, I mean, there's only one, but you know what I mean? Like, you could look at any frame from this movie and be like, oh, that's a John DeHart movie, because only he would do it that way.
Yeah, no, that's a great point too. And it's something that we, this little, I don't know how to say it, like a sliver of something that we had, 30 years ago, that through whatever changes that happened in the industry, whether it was the blockbuster consolidation of things, and then that blockbuster consolidation led to the big studios getting into the DTV world and consolidating things further there, and then the whole thing collapses between Blockbuster cannibalizing their market and Netflix coming in, and then the streaming thing, and now there's just no money in it, and we've kind of lost something through this progression that's happened over the last 30 years, that it's nice to be able to go back, even if it is something as goofy as the Shimmy Slide. It's like you can go back. I mean, there isn't a movie today, I don't think, that would keep the Shimmy Slide in. That I don't think that there's a producer that would let you do the Shimmy Slide in that movie. So the fact that we have it is such a nice thing.
And another aspect of it that kind of bridges the gap a little bit is it almost has a feeling of a regional low budget movie. Not exactly, because it was obviously filmed in Los Angeles with some name actors, but the scenes where it's just John DeHart and Pamela Bryant feels like a almost somebody grabbed a camera and made a movie in their own backyard. And so that video era had like this shelves and shelves full of kind of low budget, whether they're shot on video or just shot on regular film, just these regional movies that maybe never ever made it out of their particular region, but it just kind of has that feeling of just like oh, hey everybody, let's grab a camera and let's make a movie.
Well, it's like we were talking about the wave movies, where it's like you watch a wave movie and you've got like Debbie D and Laura Giglio, where they're from South Philly, and you hear, or people that are from South Jersey, you hear that in their voice, and it's maybe they're shooting like in the Pine Barrens area, where it looks like it could be any forest, or they're shooting at people's houses and things like that, and you could be anybody's place, but the voices definitely sound like they're from this area. And the idea that those movies are further out, that people are seeing those in other parts of the country, is fascinating, because it's just like such a funny thing. Or like we were talking about with Santa Claus, where that movie's made in Pittsburgh, and it's it's a whole slice of Pittsburgh, but because of the people involved with making that, it could get further out. Yeah, it is always an interesting thing that you've got, that we had that element as well, that like there was like an East Coast distribution for wave films for a long time, where that's where they were. People would get them between New York and DC. That's kind of where you'd get those kinds of movies, and maybe go a little bit inland as well. And then like LA kind of had probably its own thing too. And this was maybe a movie that sort of escaped containment from LA and kind of broke out there.
Yeah, and it's kind of fascinating how just that level of personality of John DeHart, and that the regional aspect of it just kind of just gives it a flavor to it that maybe if it was a PM movie or a Canon movie, it would something would get lost in the assembly line part of it.
Well, because you think about a PM movie, they shot in LA as well, but they shot really in LA. Like I mean, every once in a while they would leave the LA area, like was it Ring of Fire 3, where he goes right to a cabin out there. Um, but but yeah, I don't know. It's Yeah, they wouldn't have gone where Neil, I almost called him Neil Breen, where John DeHart was living. And I'm sure if you look on a map, it's probably not that far from LA. It's probably like 40-45 minutes, but it doesn't take long to leave LA and get into some of those areas. And so yeah, you're getting a part of the LA area that you don't normally get. PM certainly wouldn't have been shooting in that area unless they were, you know, trying to have characters out in the woods for a short period of time. And so, yeah, that's kind of a nice part of this too. That I think John DeHart was maybe shooting in his own house for a lot of it, or a friend's house or something like that. And it's like, yeah, we're in the area, we'll use that.
Yeah, I mean the bar, just like you said, it just feels like they filmed it at his house, and that just gives it that homespun quality that you don't get. And of course, I think if it was a PM movie, like Mary and Pepin would have been like, John, we need a couple more action scenes in this part. Here's scenes from another action movie you can just sandwich in there somewhere. But the fact that there isn't like these like and the like you said, the one that we get with the motorcycle being kind of incompetently edited kind of just adds to that charm about it as well.
Yeah, because I mean, the PM guys would have said, "No, you're not using your own house. You're going to use this mansion that we've got access to shoot some of these scenes. That's where you're going to do the house scenes. We're going to actually shoot at a bar, right? You're not going to use your finished
We shoot at a bar.
right? Yeah,
We're gonna have locations in this movie. Damn it!
right, exactly. I mean, the finished bar in the basement kind of remind me too of some of the Amir Shervan films they would shoot in like this finished basement that somebody had that had like it was like green felt and like wood paneling and stuff like that had like pictures on the wall. Um, I can't remember which ones. I think like Young Rebels used it, and it was just again, it's just these. It kind of takes you back to a different time when you'd visit somebody's. It's like my parents, my dad finally he didn't really do a finished basement. He just sort of cleaned it up so you could like play hockey and stuff in the like a short like one-on-one kind of stuff like that. It wasn't like a den kind of thing with couches and stuff. But I remember like a friend who's his dad was a pilot, so definitely he had more money, and we would all hang out in that finished basement with the bar and everything like that. And that was like there was a time for those kinds of things. Now it's like a novelty on social media that somebody goes to buy the house and they have the wood paneled basement kind of thing. But this was kind of interesting because it was 1993. It was almost like a little bit more modern, the finished basement that he had, because there was none of that wood paneling or anything like that.
Yeah, and like I said, it was almost like you could tell maybe they had their own karaoke set up at some point. Maybe he had karaoke parties because karaoke was kind of big at that time too, just like kind of taking off as well. And maybe someone offhandedly said, "Hey, you should sing your own songs," and that maybe that was the kernel that got the whole movie popping.
Right. Yeah. He was, he struck me as this term that I have because nowadays you think of like hipster dads, where you get those sort of like those younger dads with the beards who kind of they're sort of we see them a lot here in Philadelphia. They've got like the one baby on the pouch in front, and maybe they're pushing the stroller, and they're kind of just doing their hipster thing, and maybe mom's got the active wear budget or something like that. But it's that kind of thing. I always thought like the equivalent when I was growing up was what I called the cocaine dad, where it was like, like my dad would have these friends who at the time I didn't know it because I was too young to realize it. But now I realize that they were like, whereas my dad kind of stayed in his hippie lane and, when the 80s came and the 90s, he didn't really leave the 70s. He always stayed there. But he had these friends who maybe they were a little bit younger or they just, for whatever reason, they advanced into the 80s and they had like more 80s style haircuts, like mullets and things like that. They wore things like flip flops and short, there was a whole thing. And the thing I didn't realize was that they had made the shift from weed to cocaine in the 80s. That I see it now, you know, and I think back to moments when my dad talking to some of these guys, there was a lot more nose sniffling and things like that. That like, you know, they didn't have allergies or colds, you know. Um, but John DeHart strikes me. I'm not saying John DeHart was doing coke, and I'm not saying all these friends of my dad's were also doing coke either. They just were. They kind of moved into the '80s. John DeHart kind of strikes me as that kind of guy. That he would have been a cocaine dad, even if he didn't have kids. That he was more up on things than, you know, he didn't stay stuck in the '70s into the '80s. He was more up on things as time went on, and so I could see him getting the newest of whatever. And you know, whether that was, you know, karaoke at that time probably would have been one of those things.
Yeah, and I mean the leather pants definitely checks that box too.
Exactly, exactly, yes. You know, which he was always wearing the leather pants. Yeah, I mean, I guess the Miss Pac-Man, that would have been 10 years old, but even then, I guess, right? Because, you know, what arcade machines, even if you're rich, you know, what ones could you afford? You know, 10-year-old Miss Pac-Man, I guess, you know, that would make sense.
Yeah, I'm and you know a night long cocaine jag and a Miss Pac-Man machine. They just go together so perfectly.
Right, exactly.
One more quarter, one more quarter.
Exactly.
I got to get the double banana.
Right, right, exactly. Yeah, I remember in 2001, my friend and I would go to this truck stop in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, where, you know, I grew up. It was like the summer in college, and I remember the truck stop had an old Galaga machine from, you know, from the early '80s, and then across the room, because there was like this little room that had arcade games. On the other side of the room, or across the room, there was the 20th anniversary Galaga Miss Pac-Man game. And the funny thing is that now that Galaga Miss Pac-Man 20th anniversary, that game itself has passed its 20th anniversary. So it's like, because that was 2001, we've already passed 2021. So the 20th anniversary of Galaga and Miss Pac-Man has now passed as well, which is just crazy to think about. But yeah, so John DeHart, he, you know, this would have been, I guess he would have had a 10th anniversary machine if that's what they had. But
Yeah, so I guess we're 45th anniversary.
mm-hmm.
Oof, you're trying to
Yeah,
make me feel old here, man.
I know, I know. It's crazy. That's crazy. The thing about that, so that Galaga machine, so the old Galaga machine, at that point, 20 years on, if you, it would sometimes if you would shoot the bugs, the laser would go through them and it would miss them. So you could get your really good high scores on the newer machine because it didn't have that same issue. And I remember I pulled a 2.9 million score. I was at level 238. So I was like 18 away from tilting the thing, which is 256. So my friends and I knew that because there's a trick that a trucker showed us one time where if you leave the last two bugs in Galaga on the first level and let them keep flying at you, eventually they stop shooting and then the bugs never shoot at you again. And so that's how we tilted the game, you know, to find that out. But there was a long period of my life where I was able to say, or where I would say that that was like one of my greatest achievements. I think it was like, you know, getting my college degree and then 2.9 million on a Galaga game. I since fortunately can move some things, you know, move that down the list some, but there, there was a significant portion of my life where I'd say that was one of my greatest achievements, you know, for not significant, but for some time after that, at least I could say that that was one of my greatest achievements.
Well, you don't want to eclipse it right away. You want to bask in the glory a little bit, you know.
Right, exactly. It's not something you can put on a resume, you know, when you graduate college and you're looking for jobs, or you know, you're applying to grad schools or things like that. Like, well, I did score 2.9 million, you know, and I also didn't have any proof because this was before camera phones. So,
Oh yeah.
you know, so there was no picture. Yeah, there was no, you know, it's just just me and my buddy, which I can't even imagine he remembers that at that time. But you know, I was in a zone of some sort because, you know, once you tilt the score once you go over a million, you can't get any more extra lives. So you're just kind of stuck with what you've got for lives. And so, yeah, that the thing about video games back then, the way that these rules worked with these games, where it was like, you know, the game didn't want you to score a million. It didn't expect you to score a million points. So it was like once you did, kind of you were in this gray zone of the game, you know, and then to do it again, go over a million again, just say, yeah, they don't make video games like that anymore, which is, I don't know. I don't know if it's a shame or I don't know, but you know.
Well, I mean, for me, like, I grew up, next door to an arcade. So like or my parents' store had was next door to an arcade. So I spent the better part of my life playing Miss Pac-Man and Galaga, and those for me. I mean, even more so than the Nintendo games, like Super Mario Brothers and stuff. Though that's what I cut my teeth on. And when I go, if I see an arcade at all now and they have one of those machines, I still will fire them up and play them, because it's just like I said, it's what I cut my teeth on. It's what I know, and what I like to play. Though I think my favorite old school game was the old Popeye game.
Oh yes, yeah.
That was the one I put. I mean, Miss Pac-Man was number one, but like I don't think a lot of people like talk about that old Popeye game, because that was a lot of fun. And hopefully, with him being in the public domain, they can just bring that back out with no problems. Because I would definitely buy a home version of that.
Yeah, that was another good one. That's a good point. Yeah, it's funny that there's in Weirs Beach, New Hampshire, in the Lakes region there. There's I think they call it like the Arcade Museum, but there's like a bowling alley that up in the top level. There's a whole bunch of old arcade games. My buddy took me there because growing up in New Hampshire, we weren't that far from it. But if you ever watched that movie, The King of Kong, I don't know if you've seen that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So when they go up there to do like the big tournament stuff, that's where that is.
Oh, cool, cool.
Yeah. So I was there. The one thing I didn't like about the Galaga, because the thing with Galaga is you could set it so like it either shoots in bursts of 3 or it shoots as much as you can pump it. And the one at the truck stop we played at, as much as you could hit the button, it would shoot. But I think the one at the Weirs Beach, it did the bursts of 3, and so I was like, I don't I don't know if they wanted to make it harder on us, but yeah, I was never a fan of that kind of thing.
They saw you coming.
Yes, they were like, yeah, we're turning this thing off on this guy. Yeah, so I mean that was like about 5 years. The thing about games like Galaga is that you lose it quick. It's like that summer we were playing because there's not a lot to do in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. I mean, even when you're over 21, it's like how much do you really want to get wasted? And the other thing too is you could still get wasted after you play Galaga. So it was like, so we were playing it. And because they had 2 machines, my buddy and I could play at the same time. So that was the other thing. So we would trade off who got the new machine, who got the old machine. And yeah, the thing I remember was my buddy, he smoked at that time. So he would have the cigarette while he was playing. And so another piece of arcade, another part of the arcade experience that you don't have anymore, right? You can't smoke in arcades anymore.
Mm-mm. Can't smoke anywhere now.
Right, exactly. So yeah, that was that I mean that could be talking about movies to talk about that could be an interesting one to discuss is the King of Kong, because that was a fascinating movie too.
Yeah, and then they kind of did a little bit of that. They kind of fictionalized parts of it for Pixels, which I really enjoy. A lot of people didn't like, but I really dug Pixels. With making there were some references to that in there as well, and the way that they did the Galaga special effects in that, I really dug that.
Yeah. Those games were very simple. And with the quarters thing, I think that kind of changes when Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter become big, because then it was about like winner stays and all of those kinds of things. It kind of changed how the quarters went, but the games behooved you to be better at them because you spent less the better you were at the game. You could
Right.
stay on it and play longer. And nowadays they've kind of twisted that around, because instead of arcade games, it's the home consoles. And the home consoles, it's almost like you got to pay to play, right? There's like subscriptions and things like that. So that it was a very honest system back then. You just gotta be good at the game, and that's how you save your money.
Unless you played Dragon Slayer and then you just lost $1 every 5 seconds, because I could never get past the second whatever snake, and I was like, okay, that's it. I'm done. I can't play this anymore.
Well, that was the other thing about the classic games, right? Was that they only cost 1/4. They never went up in price. But like, yeah, Dragon Slayer, that was like, oh, it's $1 because it's a big deal. You got to NBA Jams, I think, was $1, right? But then it was like a a quarter to continue after each quarter or something like that. It was like, yeah, they also jacked up the prices. I mean, and of course we're talking about going from a quarter to 2 quarters to play a game or something like that. But yeah, that was the other piece of it. It's like you could make a dollar go further if you were good at Galaga or Miss Pac-Man or something like that. Versus, if you're playing Mortal Kombat, and it's like somebody who was good was playing, you would just, you'd lose, and then you'd have to put your quarter up and wait to play again.
Yeah, I mean, the head-to-head aspect was always, fun, and especially when you can play simultaneously instead of like if you're playing Miss Pac-Man, you'd have to wait your turn to play, and if somebody was really good, you were standing there for like 7 or 8 minutes before you got your turn, and then when you have to jump in there, you might cool off by the time you get your next turn comes around. So
yeah, because that was the thing with those games, was that it was about the training your eye and your sort of the hand-eye coordination, but that part of it of like getting your brain in the mindset of like, like for example, like, yeah, moving Miss Pac-Man around the maze. Like if you just sit down and do it, if you haven't done it in forever, you're going to have trouble getting the movements right. You sort of get yourself in this zone where you can, your hand and your eyes are one, and they move around, and you can kind of sense where the ghosts are going to be. Or like with Galaga, you can kind of sense where the bugs are coming from, and you get the double ships, and you can start really going for it. Yeah, your eyes get tuned with it, which again, that's another piece with modern video games. It doesn't really work that way. It's more about sort of figuring things out and solving things and finding things, that kind of thing.
yeah, and to me, it lost something when they were trying to make things realistic. I'm like, well, it's like Call of Duty and stuff. It's like, somewhere after like PlayStation 2, I kind of just zoned out because I was like, yeah, they're, it's not really my thing anymore. I mean, it's kind of like one of those things where like Star Wars, where it's like at some point it stops being my thing, and I just have to bow out gracefully because I don't want to be the old man yelling at clouds. So I have the things that I like, and it's still here, and I can still play them or watch them. So I'll just be happy doing that.
Yeah, I think it's a good point too, because you don't. I've found this myself, that I don't add anything to the conversation if I'm like, well, stop calling it A New Hope. It's Star Wars. That the kids who want to call it A New Hope, they want to call it New Hope. It's like, I don't add anything to that conversation when I call it Star Wars. But to me, it's always going to be Star Wars.
Right, and it's one of those things where they have so many TV shows, and it's kind of getting that way with the Marvel stuff, where I'm like, I'll watch it. If it comes out in the theater, I'll watch it, but I'm not gonna, run myself ragged trying to watch all these shows, make all the dots line up. And I mean, if you had told me 10 years ago that there would be a Darth Maul show coming out and I wouldn't be interested in it, I would have said you're crazy. But here we are.
Right? Yeah, I totally know what you mean. Yeah, and I think again, this kind of coming back to Champagne and Bullets here, it's like you kind of appreciate the one-off aspect of it as well, right? That it's like there's not this whole investment. There's not a conversation about the Champagne and Bullets canon and whether something counts or doesn't count, or people aren't going to get mad at you if you're like, well, I think John DeHart, I think Rick. After the movie, he goes off and does this, and this, and people are gonna be like, "Yeah, that's fine." I don't get whatever you think. Yeah, it's a whole. It's a lot simpler to watch a Champagne and Bullets, like you said, than it is to sort of keep up with all of the to your point, like if you had said, there's a Darth Maul show, or if you'd said certain things about like, Star Wars movies or Marvel movies, Daredevil. I always, I love the Daredevil Netflix movies. I'm barely keeping up with the new show that's out now. And yeah, if you told me that I wasn't going to just be like, I can't wait for that next episode, I would have said, no, of course I'm going to watch it the moment it comes out. But it's like, no, there's a lot of out of market baseball that I want to watch instead. So
yeah, and the great thing about Champagne and Bullets, it's a one and done too. Like other than the Champagne Gang, where I think he just has like a cameo or whatever, you pretty much watch the whole John DeHart filmography, and you can really get a sense of where he was, where he's at, where he's going. Whereas, someone like we said, with like Orson Welles, where you can see his career's ups and downs, and that, but it's like, nope, you don't even have to do that. You just watch one movie and you get a glimpse of one very idiosyncratic alter.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point and a great way to maybe to finish up as we're wrapping up here. But Mitch, anything? I know we've talked a good amount on Champagne and Bullets. Anything that we may have missed, or anything that you wanted to mention about the movie?
I think we've pretty much covered it. Like you said, like if you're even if you're a Wings Hauser completist, and you kind of held off on it thinking that, just because he's a supporting character, it might not be enough wings for your dollar. No, Wings is very much a presence through about 75% of the movie, and he just brings his A game, and he just acts up a storm. And if you're a William Smith fan, you'll get your money's worth from this too. And I like if and like we've said this before. Like if you enjoyed uh, Miami Connection or Samurai Cop, or any of those kind of like quintessential grade Z action movies, I mean, I would put this one above those two. It's just it it's perfectly imperfect. I guess that's the best way to put it.
No, I totally agree. I would take the Pepsi challenge with this and those other ones too. I think it's just it there's too many things in it, and like when we were talking about it, we kept forgetting things that like, oh, that's right, this thing happened. It's like it's like the gift that keeps on giving, which I think is always good with these kinds of movies.
Yeah, I mean, when Wings Hauser drinking bleach doesn't enter into the conversation till hour two, I think you're you're pretty, yeah, you've got a good one on your hands here.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point for sure. Well, Mitch, as we're wrapping up, anything that you wanted to plug?
Well, you can always see me on Video Vacuum at Blogspot. I've been reviewing a lot of kung fu movies lately. Just a mishmash of stuff as usual. It's for kung fu movies. If you want more kung fu reviews, I have my latest book is the Kung Fu Companion, the Chopsaki movie guide. You can find that on Amazon Prime, and I've got my next book, The Video Vacuum Strikes Back. It's done. I just have to get all the cover stuff and all the press stuff for getting ready for that. So maybe by summer I'll have it ready, and if my summer is anything like my spring, then maybe it'll be in the fall. But it's slowly getting there.
Excellent. Well, yeah, and I got to say, yeah, when that one comes out, we'll definitely, we'll plug it on here for sure. Let everybody know. Like Kung Fu Companion, I think for people looking, to get into the Hong Kong movie space and martial arts movies, and because so many of them are available now, I think between your Kung Fu Companion and your site with the reviews there, you know, there's so many things that are available now. So those guides are really good if you're trying to kind of figure out what you want to do on a Saturday night and you want to, enjoy a kung fu movie, a Hong Kong movie, something like that. Yeah, I've used it myself. I think it's great. I've got it on my Kindle app, so I got my phone wherever I am, whenever the spirit moves me to watch a Hong Kong movie. I could go and see. Oh, did Mitch talk about that one? Excellent. Let's see what he had to say about it, and see if this is one that I want to watch, or maybe I'll turn something else on instead.
I appreciate that, and I think too, like back in the day, if we wanted to watch a good Chopsaki flick, we'd have to wait for like Black Belt Theater or Up All Night, or you have to stay up ungodly hours of the night to watch these movies, or rent them from the my closest video store never had the good you know old school kung fu movies. I always had to go to the other store, and that was a hassle. So to have all these movies on Tubi or Wu Tang, just at your fingertips, it's a blessing, and sometimes it's a curse, because then it's like Lay's potato chips. Sometimes you can't just have one, and you just keep going and going. And Yeah, so it's good. I'm I'm always a physical media activist, supporting physical media, but at the same time, I'm not gonna stare a gift horse at the mouth that has like hundreds of kung fu movies at my disposal. So
No, I totally agree. And the one benefit to these movies versus uh, Lay's potato chips, I mean, yes, maybe you're not as active, so you're not burning calories or anything like that, but at least you're not uh, driving up your sodium levels and things like that. So yeah,
well, I mean, unless you're eating ramen noodles with them or something, if
exactly.
you're doing getting the whole experience, maybe. But
That's a good point because there's no reason not that you wouldn't be eating chips while watching these movies. That's another point. That yeah, so I could see that too for sure. Excellent. Well, thank you again, Mitch, for coming on. This was another really fun conversation.
yeah, this is a blast. I hope everybody listening goes to check it out.
Yeah, definitely go check out Champagne and Bullets. So thank you for listening. We'll be back soon. Bye, everyone.
Directory